husband's mistress sat in my spot at the head of the table, rubbing her swollen belly while my mother-in-law slid a check across the cold marble surface. $6 million, Simone. That is the price for you to sign the divorce papers and vanish. They thought they were buying my silence. They thought they were buying their future. They had no idea that I was already carrying the only thing that could destroy them. Before I tell you how I brought down the most powerful family in Atlanta, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to smile while someone tried to ruin your life. My name is Simone Sterling, and up until 10 minutes ago, I was the CFO of Sterling Industries. I built their portfolio from the ground up. I fixed their tax issues. I made them millions. But in the Sterling family, value is not measured by competence. It is measured by bloodlines. And according to them, I was broken. I stood in the center of the living room in our Buckhead estate. The air smelled of expensive lilies and betrayal. Kiana, the 24-year-old Instagram model my husband had been seeing, sat on the velvet sofa. She was wearing my robe. Her hand rested protectively over her 6-month baby bump. She looked at me with a smirk that said, "I won and you lost." My husband Dante would not even look at me. He stood by the window swirling a glass of scotch, staring out at the manicured lawn. He was 32 years old, but in that moment, he looked like a terrified child waiting for his mother to fix his mess. And fix it she did. Genevieve Sterling, the matriarch of the family, tapped her manicured nails on the check. "Pick it up, Simone. It is a generous offer. More than you deserve considering you failed at your one biological duty." I looked at the check. $6 million. It was a lot of money to most people. To the Sterlings, it was pocket change. But the insult was not the money. The insult was the reason. "Dante needs an heir," Genevieve said, her voice sharp as a diamond cutter. "Kiana is carrying twins, 2 boys. The Sterling legacy is secure. You are a brilliant CFO, Simone. I will give you that. But you are a barren tree, a dead end." I felt a sharp pain in my chest, but I forced my face to remain like stone. I had spent 3 years trying to get pregnant. 3 years of fertility treatments. 3 years of drinking the bitter herbal teas Genevieve insisted I take. 3 years of feeling like a failure every month. "Take the money," Genevieve continued. "Sign the papers. Disappear from Atlanta. If you refuse, I will release the audit reports I had my team fabricate. I will tell the press you embezzled funds. I will ruin your reputation so thoroughly, you will never work in finance again." It was a bluff. I knew the books better than anyone. But I also knew that a lie travels halfway around the world, while the truth is putting on its shoes. I looked at Dante. "Is this what you want, Dante?" I asked, my voice steady. He finally turned to me. His eyes were red. "I am sorry, Simone, but Mom is right. I need sons, and Kiana gave them to me. You could not." That was the closure I needed. The love I thought we had was conditional. It was based on a transaction. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not beg. I walked over to the table and picked up the check. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I scanned the check immediately, depositing it into my private offshore account. Then I took a clear photo of the check sitting on the table next to the signed divorce papers. "What are you doing?" Kiana asked, her voice shrill. "Ensuring the transaction is documented," I said calmly. I picked up the pen. I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. I looked at Genevieve. "You want me to disappear. Consider it done. But remember this, Genevieve. You are trading a queen for a pawn because you think the pawn can give you a king. Be careful. Pawns are easily sacrificed." I turned and walked out of the house. I left my clothes. I left my jewelry. I left the life I had built for 5 years. I only took my purse and a small carry-on suitcase I had packed that morning. I did not look back. But I was not going to the airport just yet. I had one stop to make. I drove my Mercedes to the Sterling Family Private Clinic. It was a sleek modern building on the north side of the city. I needed my medical records. If I was going to start a new life, I needed to know exactly what was wrong with me. Why could I not conceive? I walked into the office of Dr. Evans, the family physician. He looked startled to see me. "Mrs. Sterling?" he stammered. "I was not expecting you." "It is Miss Thorne now," I said, closing the door behind me and locking it. "I want my file, Dr. Evans, the real one, not the summary you send to my insurance." Dr. Evans began to sweat. "I do not know what you mean." I walked closer to his desk. I leaned in. "I just signed a divorce agreement for $6 million, Dr. Evans. I have nothing to lose. But you have a medical license and a reputation. If you do not give me my unredacted file right now, I will sue this clinic and I will subpoena every email you have ever sent to Genevieve Sterling." He crumbled. He was a weak man who had been bought by a powerful woman. He opened his safe and pulled out a manila folder. "I am sorry, Simone," he whispered. "She made me do it. She said you were not suitable for the bloodline. She said your background was not elite enough." I opened the folder. My hands shook as I read the notes. My reproductive system was perfectly healthy. There was absolutely nothing wrong with me. Then I saw the prescription logs. For 3 years, Dr. Evans had been giving me injections that he claimed were vitamins and fertility boosters. They were not. They were high doses of a synthetic contraceptive. Genevieve had not just insulted me. She had violated my body. She had drugged me for 3 years to ensure I would never carry her grandchild. Rage unlike anything I had ever felt surged through my veins. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn the building down, but I pushed it down. I needed to be cold. I needed to be smart. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Say that again, Dr. Evans," I said. "Tell me exactly what she paid you to do." He confessed everything. He told me about the payments. He told me about the specific instructions to keep me barren until Dante could find a more suitable partner. I recorded every word. "Thank you, doctor," I said, pocketing the phone and the file. "This conversation stays between us for now. If you tell Genevieve I was here, I will release this recording to the medical board." I walked out of the clinic into the bright Atlanta sun. I felt lightheaded. My entire marriage had been a lie, engineered by a woman who viewed children as breeding stock. I got back into my car. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the airfield gate. Do not let them see you." I knew who it was. There was only one person in that family who had a conscience. I drove to the private airfield where I had booked a charter flight. Waiting by the security gate was a silver sedan. The window rolled down, revealing Claire. Claire was my sister-in-law, the widow of Dante's older brother, who had died in a car accident 5 years ago. She was white, and because of that, Genevieve hated her. Genevieve tolerated Claire only because she was quiet and stayed out of the way. But Claire saw everything. She stepped out of the car and handed me a small USB drive. "Take this," Claire said, checking over her shoulder. "What is it?" I asked. "It is the real financial ledger for Sterling Industries," Claire said. "Dante has been hiding losses for months. He is trying to leverage the company assets to invest in risky crypto schemes. If Genevieve finds out, she will kill him. But you might need this leverage someday." "Why are you helping me, Claire?" "Because you are the only one who treated me like a human being in that house," Claire said. "And because you need to know about Kiana." "What about her?" I asked. Claire leaned in close. "She is not just some random model Dante met at a party. She showed up at the country club exactly 1 week after Dante took out a massive loan against his trust fund. Her background check is too clean, Simone. It is like she was created just to target him. And those twins she is carrying. She refuses to let the family doctor examine her. She only sees her own specialist." I gripped the USB drive. "You think the babies are not his?" "I think this family is drowning in lies," Claire said. "Get out of here, Simone. Go to Paris. Start over. But keep your phone on. This is not over." I hugged her. It was the only genuine warmth I had felt in years. "Thank you, Claire." Watch your back. I boarded the plane. As the jet climbed over the Atlanta skyline, I looked down at the city that had chewed me up and spit me out. I touched the check in my purse. $6 million. It was seed money. I was going to Paris not to hide but to build. I would build something so big that Sterling Industries would look like a lemonade stand in comparison. 1 month passed. I was in the French countryside, standing in the middle of a vineyard I was negotiating to buy. The air was crisp and smelled of grapes and earth. I had used my finance connections to secure a meeting with the owner of a failing winery. I knew I could turn it around. I was walking through the rows of vines discussing soil pH levels with the owner when the world suddenly tilted. Black spots danced in my vision. The ground rushed up to meet me. The last thing I heard was the winery owner shouting for help in French. I woke up in a small white hospital room in Bordeaux. The hum of machines was the only sound. A doctor with kind eyes was checking my chart. "Ah, you are awake, madame," he said in heavily accented English. "You gave us quite a scare." "What happened?" I asked, trying to sit up. "Is it stress? I have been working hard." The doctor smiled gently. "Stress, yes. But also your condition. It is common in the first trimester." I froze. "My condition?" "Madame," he said, looking at his clipboard, "you are pregnant, approximately 8 weeks." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "That is impossible, doctor. I have been on birth control for 3 years. My husband and I were struggling to conceive." The doctor shook his head. "Blood tests do not lie, madame. Your hormone levels are very high. The baby is strong." I lay back against the pillow, my mind racing. 8 weeks. I counted back. 8 weeks ago was our 5th wedding anniversary. We had gone to a cabin in the mountains to try and reconnect. It was the one weekend I had forgotten to pack the vitamins Dr. Evans gave me. The one weekend my body was free of the poison Genevieve had been feeding me. One weekend. That was all it took. I placed a hand on my flat stomach. I was pregnant. I was carrying Dante's child. And then the realization hit me like a lightning bolt. The Sterling Family Trust. I had written the bylaws for the trust myself years ago. I knew every clause by heart. The trust stated that the control of the family fortune would pass to the guardian of the firstborn male heir of the direct bloodline. Genevieve thought Kiana was carrying the heirs. But Claire suspected Kiana was lying. If Kiana's babies were not Dante's and my baby was. I started to laugh. Tears streamed down my face. It was not a laugh of joy. It was the laugh of a woman who had just been handed a nuclear weapon. They paid me $6 million to leave. They thought they had cut me out. But they had forgotten the most important rule of business. Always read the fine print. I was not just an ex-wife anymore. I was the mother of the true heir. I looked at the doctor. "I need to take good care of this baby," I said, my voice turning steel cold. "He is worth billions." I reached for my phone. I saw a notification from Claire. It was a link to a live stream. Dante and Kiana were announcing their wedding date. Kiana was showing off a massive diamond ring. I swiped the notification away. "Enjoy your moment, Kiana, because I am coming back, and I am not coming alone." While I was breathing in the fresh, lavender-scented air of the French countryside, the air in the Sterling Industries boardroom was becoming unbreathable. It had been exactly 30 days since I left Atlanta. 30 days since Dante and Genevieve bought my silence with $6 million. They thought they had removed the problem. What they failed to realize was that I was not the problem. I was the solution. And without me, the intricate financial house of cards I had spent 5 years maintaining was beginning to collapse. Dante sat in the oversized leather chair at the head of the conference table. It was the same chair his father used to sit in, but on Dante it looked like a costume. He was sweating. A thin sheen of perspiration glistened on his forehead, despite the aggressively cold air conditioning of the glass skyscraper in downtown Atlanta. Across from him sat Mr. Henderson, the senior loan officer from Chase Bank. Mr. Henderson had been a family friend for decades. He had attended our wedding. He had played golf with Dante. But today there were no pleasantries. There were only spreadsheets. Dante cleared his throat nervously. Look, Jim, I know the numbers look a little down this quarter, but we are projecting a massive bounce back in Q4. Once the new tech integration launches, we will be printing money. Mr. Henderson did not smile. He adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and tapped a finger on the red ink that dominated the page. Dante, the tech integration was supposed to launch 3 months ago. Simone was the one managing that timeline. Since she left, the project manager has quit and the vendors are threatening to walk. But that is not even the main issue. Dante loosened his tie. What is the issue then? Liquidity. Mr. Henderson said, his voice flat. You authorized a $6 million cash withdrawal last month. That withdrawal triggered a covenant breach in your primary operating line of credit. You are required to maintain a cash reserve of $10 million. You currently have 4. Dante laughed nervously. It was a divorce settlement, Jim. A personal expense. It was drawn from the company operating account, Dante. Mr. Henderson replied sharply. That is commingling of funds. And because of that breach, the bank is freezing the credit line. Effective immediately. You cannot make payroll next week unless you inject personal capital. Dante turned pale. Freeze the line. You cannot do that. My mother will call the board. Your mother does not run this bank, Dante. You have 7 days to cure the default. Or, we call the loan, the entire $40 million. Mr. Henderson stood up, closed his briefcase, and walked out without shaking Dante's hand. The silence he left behind was deafening. Dante slumped in his chair, burying his face in his hands. He reached for the intercom to call his mother, but the door to the conference room burst open before he could touch the button. It was not his mother, it was Kiana. She breezed into the room, bringing with her a cloud of overpowering vanilla perfume and the chaotic energy of a hurricane. She was wearing a bright neon pink tracksuit that looked like it cost more than most people's cars, but looked cheap on her. Sunglasses big enough to cover half her face sat on top of her head. Babe, you have to come outside right now, she squealed, clapping her hands. Her long acrylic nails clicked together like plastic castanets. Kiana. Not now, Dante snapped, not lifting his head. I am working. Working can wait, Kiana said, pouting. She walked over and sat on the edge of the mahogany table, swinging her legs. You promised me a push present for the twins. Well, I found it. And I bought it. It is outside. Dante looked up slowly. You bought what? A G-Wagon. Kiana beamed. A Mercedes G-Wagon. But not just a regular one. I got it custom wrapped in matte gold. To match the nursery theme. It is sick, Dante. The paparazzi are going to lose their minds when they see me driving it. Dante stood up slowly. His face was gray. Kiana, how did you pay for a $200,000 car? I used the black card, silly, Kiana said, rolling her eyes. The one you gave me. The one that says Sterling Industries. Dante felt the room spin. That was the corporate expense card. The card meant for travel and client dinners. Kiana, he whispered, you cannot buy a car on a corporate card. The IRS will audit us. The bank just froze our accounts. Kiana waved her hand dismissively. Oh, stop being such a boring old man. It is a business expense. I am the mother of the heirs. My safety is business. Besides, I needed something safe for the boys. She rubbed her belly, emphasizing the pregnancy that was her golden ticket. Before Dante could scream, the door opened again. This time, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Genevieve Sterling walked in. She was dressed in a charcoal gray Chanel suit, her silver hair pulled back in a severe chignon. She looked at Kiana perched on the conference table in her pink tracksuit, and then she looked at Dante. Her expression was one of pure, unadulterated disgust. Get off the table, Genevieve said softly. Her voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of a whip crack. Kiana hopped off looking startled. Hi, Genevieve. I was just showing Dante the new car I got for the babies. I saw it, Genevieve said coldly. It is parked in the handicap spot out front. It looks like a gold foil candy wrapper. It is the most vulgar thing I have ever seen. Kiana bristled. It is stylish. You just do not understand modern trends. I understand that you are spending money we do not have, Genevieve snapped. She turned to Dante, ignoring Kiana completely. Henderson just called me. He told me about the credit freeze. He told me about the covenant breach. How could you be so stupid, Dante? Mom, I can fix it, Dante stammered. I just need to move some assets around. Simone used to have a contingency fund for this. Simone is gone, Genevieve hissed, stepping closer to her son. Because you could not keep it in your pants, and I had to clean up your mess. But Simone never would have let the liquidity drop below 10 million. Simone never would have let a mistress buy a gold truck on the company card. Hey, Kiana shouted, stepping between them. I am not a mistress. I am his fiancée, and I am carrying your grandsons. You better watch how you talk to me, old lady. Or maybe I will get stressed out. And you know what the doctor said about stress? It is bad for the babies. The room went silent. It was a direct threat. Kiana was holding the unborn twins hostage. Genevieve looked at Kiana. For a moment, I saw the mask slip. I saw the realization dawning on Genevieve that she had made a terrible mistake. She had traded a sophisticated, intelligent woman who protected the family legacy for a tacky, greedy child who was draining it dry. But Genevieve was a survivor. She swallowed her pride. She forced a tight smile. You are right, Kiana, Genevieve said, her voice straining with effort. You need to rest. Stress is bad for the heirs. Keep the car. But give me the credit card. What? Kiana gasped, clutching her purse. No way. I need to buy things for the nursery. I need clothes. I have a maternity shoot next week. Give me the card, Genevieve repeated, extending her hand. Or I will cancel it remotely, and you will be embarrassed when it declines at Gucci. Kiana huffed and threw the heavy black metal card onto the table. It slid across the mahogany and stopped right in front of Dante. Fine, Kiana spat. But Dante, you better fix this. I am not going to be a broke mom. I have an image to maintain. She spun around on her heels and stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the glass walls rattled. Dante and Genevieve stood in the silence. The ghost of my presence hung heavy in the room. She is a parasite, Genevieve whispered, staring at the door. She is the mother of my children, Dante said defenselessly. Is she? Genevieve asked, turning to look at her son. Because she spends more time shopping than she does at the doctor. Have you actually seen an ultrasound, Dante? Have you seen the babies? She goes to a private specialist, Dante said, rubbing his temples. She says she wants privacy. She is sensitive about her body. Genevieve walked over to the window, looking out at the city skyline. The same view I used to look at when I was solving their problems. Fix this, Dante, Genevieve said. Find the money. Sell the vacation home in Aspen if you have to. But if this company goes under before those boys are born, I will disown you myself. And Dante, call legal. I want a paternity test ready the second those children take their first breath. Dante looked up, shocked. Mom, you cannot be serious. I paid $6 million to get rid of the smart one. Genevieve said, her reflection in the glass looking tired and old. I am not going to lose the rest of my fortune to the greedy one unless I am absolutely certain she delivered what I paid for. As she walked out, leaving Dante alone with his crumbling empire and his mounting debts, one thing was clear. The Sterling family was at war. Not with me, but with themselves. And across the ocean I was just pouring myself a cup of tea, waiting for the phone to ring. I knew the Aspen house was the only liquid asset they had left. And I knew exactly which holding company was going to buy it for pennies on the dollar. While Dante was drowning in the mess he created, I was sitting on a balcony in Paris watching the sun rise over the Seine. The morning air was crisp and smelled of roasting coffee and fresh rain. My laptop was open on the bistro table in front of me, displaying the live ticker for the New York Stock Exchange. The numbers were flashing red. Beautiful, catastrophic red. Sterling Industries stock was in freefall. Following the news of the credit freeze and the rumors of liquidity issues, the market had reacted with brutal efficiency. The share price, which had hovered around $45 a share when I was CFO, had plummeted to $12 overnight. Investors were panicking. They saw a ship without a captain steering straight into an iceberg. To the rest of the world, this was a disaster. To me, it was a clearance sale. I took a sip of my espresso and opened a second secure browser window. This was the command center for Aurora Holdings. To any outsider, Aurora Holdings was just a faceless investment firm registered in the Cayman Islands with a generic address and a board of directors that existed only on paper. In reality, Aurora Holdings was me. I had used the $6 million Genevieve gave me as seed capital. I leveraged that cash against the assets of the winery I was acquiring, using the land as collateral to secure a high-risk loan from a private Swiss bank. It was a dangerous move. If the stock did not bounce back, I would be destitute. But I knew something the market did not. I knew the underlying assets of Sterling Industries were solid. The problem was not the company. The problem was the management. I began to buy. I did not make large, splashy purchases that would alert the SEC or trigger a hostile takeover warning. I used a ghost protocol. I set up algorithms to buy small blocks of shares every time the price dipped below certain thresholds. 500 shares here, 1,000 shares there. It was a slow, steady accumulation. Like a python wrapping itself around its prey, I was tightening my grip on the company piece by piece, and Dante and Genevieve were too busy fighting with each other to notice. By noon, Paris time, I had acquired 3% of the outstanding float. It was not enough to take control yet, but it was a foothold. I was no longer just an ex-wife, I was a shareholder. A silent, invisible shareholder who was slowly buying the floor out from under them. But financial warfare was only half the battle. I needed to keep them distracted. I needed to keep them angry and irrational. And in the age of social media, there was no better weapon than envy. I knew Kiana monitored my accounts. I could see the analytics. A user from Atlanta, Georgia viewed my profile 17 times a day. She was obsessed with me. She needed to believe she had won, but deep down, she was terrified that she was just a cheap replacement. I decided to feed that insecurity. I stood up and went to the walk-in closet of my rented apartment. My body was changing. At 12 weeks, my stomach had a definite roundness to it, a soft curve that I had dreamed of for years. I ran my hand over it, whispering a promise to my son. We were going to take back everything they stole. I chose an outfit carefully. I needed to look expensive, carefree, and most importantly, thin. I selected a vintage Hermes silk scarf and draped it artfully over a loose-fitting white linen blouse. The pattern of the scarf confused the eye completely, hiding the bump. I paired it with high-waisted trousers that I left unbuttoned at the top, concealed by the blouse and the scarf. I went back to the balcony. The lighting was perfect. I held up a glass of sparkling grape juice that looked exactly like vintage champagne. I leaned back, letting the Eiffel Tower frame the shot in the background. My smile was bright, sharp, and utterly fake. I posted the photo to Instagram with a simple caption: "Toast to new beginnings. Freedom is the most expensive luxury of all, and I can finally afford it." I hit post. The bait was in the water. Now I waited. I did not have to wait long. Across the ocean in Atlanta, it was barely dawn, but I knew Kiana would be awake. The notifications started rolling in within minutes. Likes, comments from mutual friends congratulating me on my glow up. People from the Atlanta social circle who had been too afraid to speak to me after the divorce were now double tapping my photo. Then came the main event. My phone buzzed with an alert from Claire. "She is live." I switched apps to a burner account I had created. Kiana was live on Instagram. She was sitting in what used to be my kitchen. The lighting was harsh and she looked disheveled. She was wearing a silk robe that I recognized. It was mine. She had gone through my closet after I left. Kiana was holding a mimosa, a real one. I frowned. She was supposed to be pregnant with twins, yet she was drinking alcohol on camera. She took a sip, her eyes manic and bloodshot. "Look at this," she spat at the camera, waving her phone around, showing my post on another screen. "Look at this washed-up old hag. She thinks she is special because she is in Paris. Who cares about Paris? I am in the Sterling mansion. I am the one with the ring." She held up her hand to the camera, flashing the diamond. It looked heavy on her finger. "She is talking about freedom," Kiana ranted, her voice slurring slightly. "She does not know what freedom is. Freedom is having maids. Freedom is having a black card. Freedom is carrying the heirs to the throne." She rubbed her belly aggressively. It looked odd. Too high. Too round. People in the comments were egging her on. Some were asking about the car. Some were asking about Dante. "Dante is sleeping," Kiana scoffed. "He is always tired, stressed about money. Can you believe his mother cut off my allowance? She said I am spending too much. Me, the mother of her grandsons, she thinks she can control me like she controlled that boring accountant Simone." I leaned closer to my screen. This was gold. She was publicly bashing the matriarch. "Genevieve thinks she is the queen," Kiana continued, her bitterness spilling over. "But she is just a lonely old woman. Once these babies are born, I am going to make sure she never sees them, unless she pays up. I am going to charge her an appearance fee. You want to see the twins, Genevieve? That will be $10,000. The comments section exploded. People were shocked. Kiana was extorting her mother-in-law on a public platform. But then she made the mistake. The slip-up I had been hoping for. A user named ATL Gymrat commented, "You look good, Kiana. Miss seeing you at the gym." Kiana saw the comment. Her face softened for a split second. A look of genuine longing crossed her features, replacing the anger. "I miss the gym too," she said, staring at the screen. "I miss my trainer. He was the only one who really understood my body. He knew how to push me, not like Dante. Dante does not know anything about endurance." She giggled, a nasty drunk sound. "My boys are going to be athletes, though. They are going to have strong genes. Not like these weak Sterling men. They are going to be fighters. Like they're—" She stopped. She froze. Her eyes widened as she realized what she had almost said. Like their grandfather, she finished quickly, stumbling over the words. Like Dante's father. He was a strong man, right? The silence on the stream was palpable. She had almost said it. She had almost said, like their father. And in the context of comparing Dante to her trainer, the implication was devastating. I smiled. Tyrell, the personal trainer. Claire had mentioned him. He was the man Kiana had been seeing before she targeted Dante. Kiana quickly ended the live stream, claiming she had a headache. The screen went black. But it was too late. I had screen recorded the entire thing, every slur, every threat against Genevieve, and that fatal slip-up about the genes. I saved the video file and backed it up to 3 different cloud servers. Then I sent a copy to Claire. The caption I sent to Claire was simple: "Find the trainer, find Tyrell. I want to know everything about him. I want to know his blood type. I want to know his schedule. And I want to know how much it will cost to buy his loyalty." I closed my laptop. The sun was fully up over Paris now, bathing the city in golden light. Back in Atlanta, Kiana was probably frantically trying to delete the archive of her live stream. She would be explaining to Dante why she was trashing his mother on the internet. Genevieve would be furious about the extortion threats. The cracks in their alliance were widening into canyons. I picked up my phone and bought another 2,000 shares of Sterling Industries. The price had dipped again during Kiana's rant. I rubbed my belly. "Sleep tight, my little heir," I whispered. "Mommy just bought you another piece of your inheritance." The digital file from my private investigator Marcus Vance hit my encrypted email server at 2 in the morning Paris time. The subject line was simply receipts. I sat in the darkness of my living room, illuminated only by the glow of my laptop screen. The city of lights was asleep, but I was wide awake, fueled by adrenaline and a cup of herbal tea. Marcus was the best investigator in the business. He did not just follow people, he excavated their lives. He dug into the digital graveyards where people thought their secrets were buried. Kiana, my husband's mistress, and now his fiancée, belonged to a generation that believed hitting the delete button meant something was gone forever. She was wrong. Nothing is ever truly gone once it has touched the cloud. I opened the folder. It contained hundreds of screenshots, text logs, and recovered photos. Marcus had managed to mirror her old phone, the one she traded in for the latest model the day Dante gave her his credit card. I scrolled past the endless selfies and photos of expensive lunches. I was looking for a pattern. I was looking for the ghost in the machine. And then I found it. It was a photo from Instagram stories, dated October 28th. That was 2 weeks before Dante and Kiana supposedly met at the charity gala. Kiana had deleted it after only 10 minutes, but Marcus had retrieved it from the cache. The photo was a mirror selfie taken in what looked like a locker room. Kiana was wearing a sports bra and leggings, looking sweaty and flushed. Her arm was draped around the neck of a man whose face was cut off by the frame. You could only see his torso, his muscular arm, and his hand resting possessively on her hip. But it was what was on his wrist that stopped my heart. It was a watch. And not just any watch. I zoomed in until the pixels started to blur. I recognized the shape immediately. It was a Patek Philippe Nautilus. The 5711 with the blue dial. It was one of the most sought-after watches in the world. A timepiece that retailed for over $30,000, but traded on the secondary market for well over $100,000. Dante did not own a Patek Philippe. Dante was a Rolex man. He lacked the imagination for anything else. I leaned back in my chair. Who was this man? I opened the second file Marcus had sent. It was a cross-reference of Kiana's location data. On the day that photo was taken, she was at Equinox in Buckhead. I scrolled down to the personnel file Marcus had attached. Tyrell Jackson, personal trainer. I opened Tyrell's public Instagram profile. It was exactly what you would expect. Shirtless photos, workout videos, and motivational quotes about grinding and hustling. But I was not interested in his muscles. I was interested in his accessories. I scrolled back through his timeline. July, August, September. And there it was. A post from October 15th. Tyrell was holding a protein shake looking at the camera. And on his wrist, gleaming under the gym lights, was the Patek Philippe Nautilus. I cross-referenced the serial number visible in high resolution on another one of his photos with the stolen insurance database Marcus had access to. The watch was reported stolen 2 years ago from a wealthy divorcee in Buckhead. Tyrell was not just a trainer, he was a grifter. A man who accepted gifts from lonely rich women and probably forgot to return them when the relationship ended. But the theft was not the story, the timeline was the story. I pulled up a blank spreadsheet. It was time to do the math. I typed in the date of the photo. October 28th. Kiana and Tyrell were intimate enough for him to have his hand on her hip in a locker room. Then I typed in the date Dante met Kiana. November 12th. That was the night of the Sterling Foundation Gala. Dante had come home that night smelling of a perfume that wasn't mine. He told me he had met a charming young woman who was interested in philanthropy. Then I opened the medical file I had stolen from Dr. Evans. According to Kiana's first ultrasound, the gestational age of the twins placed conception around the last week of October. I stared at the screen. The numbers screamed the truth in black and white. Dante met Kiana on November 12th. The babies were conceived in late October. There was a 2-week gap. In the world of corporate finance, a 2-week gap is a rounding error. In the world of biology, a 2-week gap is the difference between being a father and being a victim of fraud. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. Kiana was already pregnant when she met Dante. She did not target him to get pregnant. She targeted him because she was already pregnant, and she needed a scapegoat. She needed a man with money and a desperate need for an heir. She knew the Sterling family reputation. She knew Genevieve was obsessed with lineage. It was the perfect con. The twins were not Sterlings. They were Jacksons. They belonged to a personal trainer with a stolen watch and a history of seducing wealthy women. I looked at the photo of Tyrell again. I studied his face. He had a strong jawline, high cheekbones, and deep-set eyes. I pulled up a photo of Dante. Soft chin, rounder eyes, weak structure. If those babies came out looking anything like Tyrell, Kiana would have a very hard time explaining why the Sterling heirs looked like they spent their gestation period doing bench presses instead of attending board meetings. But appearance would not be enough. Genevieve was in denial. She wanted those babies to be Dante's so badly, she would probably convince herself they looked like him even if they didn't. I needed scientific proof. I needed DNA. But how could I get DNA from a man I had never met, and two babies who were not born yet? I went back to the report. Marcus had noted something interesting about Tyrell. Subject has significant gambling debts, the report read. He owes $40,000 to a bookie in Atlantic City. He is currently looking for quick cash. I closed my eyes and visualized the chessboard. Kiana was the queen protecting her king. Dante was the king, but he was paralyzed. Tyrell was the knight, a dangerous piece that could jump over obstacles, but was ultimately for sale. I picked up my phone. It was 3 in the morning, but I knew Marcus would answer. He picked up on the first ring. "Did you get the files?" he asked, his voice gravelly. "I did," I said. "Good work, Marcus. The watch is the key. I thought you might like that," he said. "So what is the play? Do we leak the photo to Dante?" "No," I said immediately. "If we leak the photo, Kiana will lie. She will say Tyrell was just a friend. She will say the dates are wrong. She will gaslight Dante, and he is weak enough to believe her. We need more. We need Tyrell to destroy her himself." "How do you want to handle him?" Marcus asked. "He needs money, right?" I asked, desperately. "He is driving a leased BMW that is 2 months behind on payments." "Good," I said. "I want you to approach him, not as my investigator. Approach him as a talent scout. Tell him you represent a wealthy client who is looking for a fitness influencer for a new luxury brand. Stroke his ego. Tell him he has the look." And then Marcus asked, "And then offer him a job," I said. "Tell him the launch party is in Atlanta. Tell him it is a high-profile event, the wedding of the year." "You want me to invite him to the wedding?" Marcus asked, sounding surprised. "I want him front and center," I said. "I want him to be the surprise guest. But before that, I need something else. I need you to get a sample." "A sample of what?" "His DNA," I said. "A coffee cup, a straw, a strand of hair. I do not care how you get it, just get it. And Marcus, I want you to find out one more thing." "What is that?" "Find out if Kiana paid him off," I said. "If she is smart, she paid him to disappear. But if she is as greedy as I think she is, she probably promised him money she has not given him yet." "I will dig into her bank transfers," Marcus said. "One more thing, Marcus." "Yes, Simone." "Buy the watch," I said. "Excuse me. Find the bookie Tyrell owes money to. Buy the debt. Then tell Tyrell you will forgive the debt if he gives you the watch. You want the stolen watch. It is evidence," I said. "When I walk into that courtroom or that church, I want to be wearing the proof on my wrist. I want Kiana to see it. I want her to know that I own her past just like I am about to own her future." "Consider it done," Marcus said. I hung up the phone. I walked over to the window and looked out at the Parisian night. The Eiffel Tower was twinkling in the distance, a beacon of iron and light. Genevieve Sterling had built her entire life on the belief that blood was everything, that the Sterling blood was superior, that it was worth protecting at all costs. She was about to find out that the blood she was so desperate to protect was nothing more than a lie wrapped in a stolen Patek Philippe. I placed my hand on my stomach. You are the only truth in this game, little one, I whispered. And your daddy is going to learn that family is not about who you marry. It is about who you show up for. I went back to my computer. I had one more email to send. It was to the organizers of the Sterling wedding. As a major shareholder of the company, I had certain privileges. One of them was the ability to request a +1 to any company-sponsored event. I typed in the name for my guest list edition, Mr. Tyrell Jackson. I hit send. The invitation was sent. The trap was set. Kiana thought she was walking down the aisle to a coronation. She had no idea she was walking into an ambush. And the best part was she had invited the executioner herself. She just did not know it yet. The red warning light on my secure server blinked silently in the darkness of my Paris apartment. It was not a loud alarm, but to me it screamed danger. Someone was trying to breach my firewall. I set down my tea and leaned into the glow of the monitor. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the intrusion logs. The attack was clumsy. It was a brute force attempt trying to guess my passwords using a dictionary script. It lacked finesse. It lacked sophistication. It reeked of desperation. I traced the IP address instantly. It was bouncing through a few proxy servers in Russia and Brazil, but whoever set it up had made a rookie mistake. They had left the payment digital signature exposed in the packet header. I followed the money trail. The attack was paid for using a prepaid Visa card purchased at a CVS in Buckhead, Atlanta 3 hours ago. I pulled up the security camera footage from that CVS, which I could access thanks to a loophole in their vendor system I had discovered years ago during a due diligence audit. I rewound the tape to 3 hours ago. And there she was. Kiana. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie, trying to look inconspicuous, but failing miserably because she was also carrying her signature neon pink Birkin bag. She bought the prepaid card with cash, looking over her shoulder like a fugitive. I sat back and laughed. It was a cold, humorless sound. Kiana was trying to hack me. She was looking for dirt. She wanted to find a scandal she could leak to the press to distract from her own crumbling reputation. She wanted to find emails proving I was bitter, or photos of me with another man. She wanted anything that would paint me as the villain and her as the victim. But my digital life was a fortress. I did not leave breadcrumbs. I left landmines. I decided not to block the hack immediately. Instead, I redirected it. I opened a dummy folder on my drive labeled Secret Financials. Inside, I placed a single file. It was a PDF. When Kiana's hacker finally cracked the folder and opened the file, they would not find my bank records. They would find a high-resolution photo of Kiana and Tyrell, the personal trainer, taken from the gym's security footage I had acquired. Underneath the photo, I had typed a simple caption. I know about the watch. I watched the connection log. The hacker opened the file. There was a pause. Then the connection was severed instantly. The hacker had panicked, but I was not done. Kiana had declared war on me. It was time to return fire. But I would not shoot at her directly. I would let her own paranoia destroy her. I composed an email. I used a spoofed address that made it look like it came from the Sterling Industries internal security team. To Mr. Dante Sterling. Subject security alert. Body of the email. Mr. Sterling. We have detected an unauthorized attempt to access company servers originating from a device registered to the home Wi-Fi network at your personal residence. The attack pattern suggests an amateur attempt to solicit illegal information on a former employee. Please be advised that such actions can expose the company to federal cybercrime investigations. We recommend you secure your household devices immediately. I hit send. 3,000 miles away in Atlanta, Dante's phone would be buzzing. He would see that his own fiancée was putting his company at risk with her petty vendettas. He was already stressed about the frozen credit lines. This would push him over the edge. I closed my laptop. The cyber attack was neutralized, but the ground war was just beginning. While I was handling the digital front, my sister-in-law Claire was deep behind enemy lines inside the Sterling mansion. Claire was the unsung hero of this operation. Genevieve and Kiana treated her like furniture. They ignored her presence, speaking freely in front of her as if she were deaf. They underestimated her because she was quiet. They did not realize that silence is the loudest way to listen. That afternoon, Claire had a mission. It was a mission I had given her with strict instructions. Kiana was neglecting her health. Claire had told me that Kiana was skipping her prenatal appointments and refusing to take the vitamins Dr. Evans prescribed. Kiana was obsessed with not gaining weight. She was terrified that if she got fat, Dante would leave her. So instead of vitamins, she was taking diet suppressants she bought online. This was unacceptable. Not because I cared about Kiana, but because I cared about the innocent children she was carrying. Those twins were leverage, yes, but they were also human beings. And I needed them healthy. I needed their DNA to be viable for the test that would destroy Dante. Claire moved through the silent hallways of the Sterling estate. The house was cold and empty. Dante was at the office trying to put out the fires I had started. Genevieve was at the country club keeping up appearances. Kiana was in her bedroom, likely screaming at the hacker who had failed her. Claire slipped into the kitchen. She opened the cabinet where Kiana kept her supplements. She found the bottle labeled prenatal vitamins. She opened it and sniffed. It smelled like caffeine and chemical fillers. Diet pills. Claire shook her head. Kiana was starving the heirs to the Sterling fortune just to fit into a dress. Claire pulled a bottle from her apron pocket. It contained high-quality pharmaceutical-grade prenatal vitamins that she had bought herself. They looked exactly like the diet pills, but they were packed with iron, folic acid, and calcium. Working quickly, Claire dumped the diet pills into the trash compactor and crushed them. Then she filled the bottle with the real vitamins. "Drink up, Kiana," Claire whispered, screwing the cap back on. "You might not want to be a mother, but you are going to carry these babies to term whether you like it or not." But the vitamin swap was just the distraction. The real target was upstairs. Claire climbed the grand staircase, her heart pounding in her chest. She needed a sample. I needed Dante's DNA. A toothbrush would not work because Kiana sometimes used Dante's things. A coffee cup was too risky to smuggle out. I needed hair. Hair with the follicle attached. Claire reached the master bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. She could hear Kiana in the ensuite bathroom. She was on the phone, her voice muffled by the running water. "He knows," Kiana was hissing. "The hacker said she knew. She sent a picture, Tyrell. A picture of us. No, I did not pay you yet. You will get your money when I get access to the trust fund. Just shut up and lay low." Claire froze. Kiana was talking to Tyrell. She was confirming everything I suspected. Claire waited until the water turned off, and she heard the hum of a hairdryer. Kiana would be occupied for at least 10 minutes. Claire slipped into the bedroom. It smelled of stale champagne and desperation. She went straight to Dante's dresser. There it was, his Mason Pearson hairbrush, the one Genevieve had bought him because she said cheap brushes damaged the sterling hair. Claire picked it up. Her hands were shaking. She pulled a small Ziploc bag from her pocket. She examined the bristles. There were plenty of dark hairs tangled in the brush. She used a pair of tweezers she had brought to carefully extract 5 or 6 strands, making sure the tiny white bulbs at the root were intact. Those bulbs contained the genetic code that would rewrite the future of this family. She dropped the hairs into the bag and sealed it. She shoved the bag deep into her bra. She put the brush back exactly as she found it. She turned to leave, but the bathroom door opened. Kiana stood there wrapped in a towel, steam billowing out behind her. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Claire. "What are you doing in here?" Kiana snapped. Claire flinched, but she recovered quickly. She held up a stack of folded towels she had grabbed from the linen closet in the hallway. "I brought fresh towels," Claire said, lowering her eyes. "The maid forgot to restock the master suite." "I did not want you to be cold," Kiana sneered. She walked over and slapped the towels out of Claire's hands. They scattered on the floor. "I do not want your help, white girl," Kiana spat. "You are just here to spy on me, aren't you? You are probably reporting back to that witch Genevieve. Tell her I am doing fine. Tell her the heirs are perfect. and stay out of my room." "I am sorry," Claire whispered, crouching down to pick up the towels. "I was just trying to be nice." "Get out!" Kiana screamed, pointing at the door. "And take your cheap energy with you." Claire hurried out of the room, clutching the towels to her chest. She did not look back. She ran down the hall, down the stairs, and out the back door into the garden. Once she was behind the hedge of hydrangeas, she leaned against the brick wall and exhaled. Her knees were shaking. She reached into her dress and pulled out the small plastic bag. The dark hairs inside looked like nothing special, just strands of keratin. But Claire knew better. This was the smoking gun. She pulled out her phone and sent me a text. "Package secured. It is in the mail tonight. Overnight shipping to Paris." "And Simone, you were right. She is talking to Tyrell. She is terrified." I read the text in Paris and let out a breath I did not know I was holding. We had the watch, we had the motive, and now we had the DNA. The triangle was complete. I looked at the calendar. The wedding was in 3 weeks. Genevieve wanted a spectacle. She wanted a royal wedding to show the world that the Sterling dynasty was stronger than ever. She wanted to parade Kiana and her belly in front of the elite of Atlanta. I was going to give her a spectacle, all right. I opened my banking app. I transferred another $50,000 to Marcus, my investigator. "Pay off Tyrell's bookie," I typed, "and buy him a suit. A nice one. I want him to look his best when he meets his children." I leaned back in my chair. Kiana thought she had scared Claire away. She thought she had blocked my hack. She thought she was winning. But she did not understand the difference between checkers and chess. In checkers, you react to what is in front of you. In chess, you sacrifice a pawn to kill the queen. Claire was not a pawn. She was a rook moving silently in straight lines, striking when the enemy was looking the other way. And I was the player moving the pieces. The package was on its way. The DNA would prove that Dante Sterling was not the father. And once that was proven, the trust fund would lock down, the bank would call the loans, and the Sterling empire would crumble into dust, all because of a few strands of hair and a stolen watch. I turned off my computer. For the first time in months, I was going to sleep well. But Dante was about to have a very long night. I could almost hear the argument starting in Atlanta from here. The courier arrived at my penthouse in the 16th arrondissement of Paris on a rainy Tuesday morning. He handed me a thick envelope made of cream-woven paper, so heavy it felt like a weapon in my hands. The return address was embossed in gold leaf. The Sterling Estate, Buckhead, Georgia. I knew exactly what it was before I opened it. Genevieve Sterling did not send letters. She sent decrees. I took the envelope to my desk and slid it open with a silver letter opener. Inside was a wedding invitation. It was a masterpiece of pretension. Several layers of vellum paper calligraphy that looked like it had been written by a monk from the 14th century, and a scent of lavender that was Genevieve's signature. The text requested the honor of my presence at the marriage of Dante Sterling and Kiana Jackson. I laughed out loud. The sound echoed off the high ceilings of my apartment. Most ex-wives would have thrown this into the fireplace. Most women would have cried at the cruelty of it, because that was exactly what Genevieve wanted. She wanted me to open this and feel small. She wanted me to imagine the man I loved pledging his life to the woman who stole him. She invited me because she wanted to twist the knife one last time. She wanted to show me that I had been replaced and erased. But Genevieve had made a critical error in her calculations. She assumed I was still the same woman who left Atlanta with a suitcase and a broken heart. She did not know that the woman holding this invitation was now the majority owner of a historic French vineyard and a shadow shareholder in her own family company. She wanted a reaction. I decided to give her one. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. "Pierre," I said, "go down to the private cellar. The climate-controlled section. Bring me the 1982 Grand Cru. The one we found in the back vault when I acquired the estate." Pierre hesitated. "Madame, that bottle is appraised at $50,000. There are only 3 left in existence." "Bring it up, Pierre," I commanded. "And bring me a wooden shipping crate, the one with my new family crest branded on it." Half an hour later, the bottle sat on my desk. It was dusty and dark, a vessel of history and power. I ran my fingers over the label. It was older than Dante. It was older than Kiana. It had dignity, something the Sterling family currently lacked. I pulled out a piece of stationery, my new personal stationery. It was simple, elegant, and at the top, it simply said, Simone. No last name, just me. I uncapped my fountain pen and wrote a short note. Dear Dante and Kiana, I received your invitation. I would be delighted to attend. Please accept this small token from my private collection. It is a rare vintage from the vineyard I recently acquired. It reminds me of the truth. Some things get better with age. Others just turn to vinegar. See you at the altar. Simone. I packed the bottle into the crate cushioned by velvet. I sealed the lid. Send it overnight, Pierre, I said. Priority international shipping. I want it on Genevieve Sterling's breakfast table by tomorrow morning. 24 hours later in Atlanta, the atmosphere in the Sterling mansion was toxic. Dante sat at the dining table staring at his phone. He had ignored 3 calls from the bank that morning. The liquidity crisis was getting worse. He had sold the Aspen house, but the funds were held up in escrow and payroll was due in 2 days. Kiana sat across from him eating a grapefruit. She was in a foul mood. Her hacker had failed. Her attempt to spy on me had backfired. And worst of all, her stomach was starting to show in a way that made her uncomfortable. She kept pulling her silk robe tighter, trying to hide the shape that did not quite match the timeline of her lies. Genevieve walked in pacing like a caged tiger. She slapped a newspaper onto the table. Have you seen the social columns? She demanded. They are asking why the sterling stock is down 30%. They are asking if the wedding is over budget. We look like fools, Dante. I am handling it. Mom, Dante said, his voice weary. You are handling nothing, Genevieve snapped. You are letting this family sink. And you, Kiana, I told you to stay off social media. Why is there a rumor on Twitter that you are extorting your own mother-in-law? Kiana shrugged aggressively. People talk, Genevieve. Maybe if you treated me better, they would hear nice things. Before Genevieve could explode, the doorbell rang. The housekeeper walked in a moment later carrying a heavy wooden crate. A package for Mr. Sterling, she said, setting it down on the table. It required a signature. Kiana's eyes lit up. Is it from Cartier? She asked, reaching for it. Did you finally buy me the necklace I wanted, Dante? I did not buy anything, Dante said, rubbing his temples. I do not have any money, Kiana. Kiana ignored him. She grabbed a steak knife from the table and pried open the lid of the crate. She pulled away the velvet packing. It is just wine, she said, disappointed. Just a dirty old bottle of wine. Who sends one bottle? Cheapskates. Genevieve frowned. She walked over and picked up the bottle. She adjusted her reading glasses. She looked at the label. Her breath hitched in her throat. Careful, she whispered. Put it down, Kiana. Why? Kiana asked. It looks old. It is a 1982 Grand Cru. Genevieve said, her voice trembling slightly. It is one of the most expensive wines in the world. This bottle is worth more than your car, Kiana. Dante looked up. Who sent it? Genevieve reached into the box and pulled out the note. She read it silently. Her face went pale. The blood drained from her lips, leaving them looking like a faded scar. Read it, Dante said, standing up. Genevieve handed him the card. Her hand was shaking. Dante read it aloud. Please accept this small token from my private collection, from the vineyard I recently acquired. He stopped. He looked at the bottle. He looked at his mother. Simone bought a vineyard, he whispered. Not just a vineyard, Genevieve said, sinking into a chair. She bought the Chateau de Lumière. I recognized the crest on the box. That estate was on the market for $20 million last month. The room went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. $20 million, Kiana screeched. She has $20 million. How? You gave her 6. Where did she get the rest? She is a financial genius, you idiot, Genevieve hissed. She took the money we gave her and she leveraged it. She built an empire in 3 months while we were busy fighting over credit card bills. Dante stared at the bottle. He looked sick. He looked like a man who realized he had thrown away a diamond to pick up a rock. "She is coming," Dante whispered. "She said she would be delighted to attend." "She is coming to mock us," Kiana shouted. "She is coming to rub her money in our faces. You cannot let her in, Dante. Uninvite her. Tell security to ban her." "We cannot ban her," Genevieve said quietly. "She is a shareholder, Kiana." What? Kiana asked. "I checked the shareholder registry this morning," Genevieve said, closing her eyes. "There is a holding company called Aurora based in the Caymans. They have been buying our stock aggressively for weeks. I made some calls. The principal owner of Aurora is Simone." Dante dropped the card. "She owns us," he said. "Not yet," Genevieve said, opening her eyes. "But she has a seat at the table. If we ban her from the wedding, she can sue us for shareholder exclusion. She can cause a scene that will destroy the stock price permanently. We have to let her come." Kiana slammed her fist on the table. "This is my wedding. I am the bride. I am the one carrying the heirs. I will not have that barren witch standing there watching me." "She is not just watching," Genevieve said, standing up and regaining her composure. "She is playing a game. And she thinks she has won. But she does not know about the twins." Genevieve looked at Kiana's stomach. "Those babies are the only leverage we have left," she said coldly. "Simone may have money, she may have a vineyard, but she does not have the Sterling bloodline. As long as you deliver those boys, Kiana, we still win. The trust fund will protect us." Kiana shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She pulled her robe tighter. "Yeah," she muttered, looking away. "The babies." Dante poured himself a glass of water, his hands shaking. "What are we going to do with the wine?" "We are going to drink it," Genevieve said, picking up the $50,000 bottle. "We are going to drink her wine. We are going to smile. And then when those babies are born, we are going to crush her." Genevieve turned to the kitchen. "Open it," she ordered the housekeeper. "And bring 3 glasses." But Kiana did not look like she wanted to celebrate. She looked at the wooden box. She looked at the note signed simply Simone. She looked terrified. Because Kiana knew something Genevieve did not. Kiana knew that Tyrell was out there somewhere. And if Simone had enough money to buy a $20 million vineyard, she definitely had enough money to find a personal trainer with a gambling problem. Kiana stood up abruptly. "I am not feeling well," she said. "I am going to lie down." She ran out of the room, leaving the expensive wine on the table. Dante watched her go. A shadow of doubt crossed his face. "Mom," he said quietly, Do you think Simone knows something we don't?" Genevieve poured the dark red liquid into a crystal glass. She swirled it, inhaling the aroma of power and wealth. "Simone always knows something we don't, Dante," she said, taking a sip. "That was her job. We paid her to know things." She looked at her son. Her eyes were hard. "But she made a mistake coming back here," Genevieve said. "This is Atlanta. This is my turf. She might be a queen in France, but here she is, just an ex-wife. And I am going to remind her of that." She raised the glass. "To the wedding," she said. Dante did not drink. He just stared at the empty chair where Kiana had been sitting and wondered why his fiancée looked like she had seen a ghost. The private medical laboratory in the 7th arrondissement of Paris was a fortress of glass and steel. It was sterile, quiet, and expensive. Exactly the kind of place where secrets were decoded into data. I sat in the waiting room staring at the abstract art on the wall, but seeing nothing. My hands were folded over my stomach. It had been 3 days since I FedExed the package Claire sent me to this facility. Inside that package was a small Ziploc bag containing 5 strands of Dante Sterling's hair. Dark, thick strands pulled from his favorite Mason Pearson brush. Strands that still held the follicle bulbs, the biological keys to the kingdom. I had also given the lab 2 vials of my own blood. The test was called NIPT, non-invasive prenatal testing. By analyzing the cell-free fetal DNA floating in my bloodstream and comparing it to the genetic markers in Dante's hair, the geneticists could determine paternity with absolute certainty. My phone buzzed. It was an email notification. The subject line was simply, Case 89402. Results ready. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. This, this was the moment that would define the rest of my life. If the baby was not Dante's, if by some miracle of biology it belonged to a past boyfriend or a statistical anomaly, then I was just a wealthy divorcee with a vineyard. But if it was his, then I was the mother of the crown prince. I tapped the screen. The PDF opened. I scrolled past the medical jargon, the disclaimers, and the charts. I went straight to the bottom of page 3. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. I let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my lungs for 3 years. He was Dante's, my son. The boy kicking inside me right now was a Sterling. He was the direct heir. The blood of the grandfather who built the empire ran through his tiny veins. Genevieve Sterling had paid $6 million to exile her own grandson. She had drugged me to prevent his existence. She had abused me for failing to provide him. And now here he was, growing strong and healthy, thousands of miles away from her poison. I touched the screen, tracing the numbers. "You are safe now," I whispered to my belly. "You are legit, and you are going to own everything." But the email had a second attachment. This was the wild card. Claire had not just sent the hair, she had sent a swab. I closed my eyes, remembering the text Claire had sent me describing how she got it. It was the morning after the wine arrived. Kiana was hungover. She was screaming at the maids because her mimosa was too pulpy. She had thrown a tantrum and demanded sparkling water with lemon. Claire had brought it to her. Kiana drank it in 3 gulps and then thrust the crystal glass back at Claire, telling her to wash it because it smelled like cheap detergent. Claire had taken the glass into the pantry. She did not wash it. She used a sterile cotton swab from the kit I had mailed her to wipe the rim of the glass, where Kiana's saliva and lipstick were still fresh. Then she sealed it in a biohazard tube. The lab in Paris had run a different kind of test on this sample. They compared the genetic markers in Kiana's saliva to the genetic markers in Dante's hair. I opened the second PDF. This test was more complex. It analyzed the compatibility of alleles, but the conclusion was written in plain English for the client. Genetic mismatch. The probability of the donor Dante Sterling being the biological father of the fetuses carried by the donor Kiana Jackson is 0.00%. 0. Not low probability, not inconclusive. 0. I stared at the number. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful 0 I had ever seen. I knew it was true. My investigation into Tyrell the trainer and the timeline of the watch had already told me the truth. But seeing it here stamped with the seal of a genetic institute made it a weapon. This was admissible in court. This was admissible in the court of public opinion. Kiana was carrying 2 children. Neither of them was a Sterling. I had the leverage to end the war right now. I could email these results to Dante. I could email them to Genevieve. The wedding would be canceled. Kiana would be thrown out on the street. But that was too easy. That was mercy. And after what they did to me, I was fresh out of mercy. If I revealed the truth now, Genevieve would spin it. She would say she was a victim of fraud. She would play the sympathy card. She would say she was just a grandmother who wanted to love a child. She would survive. No, I needed to let the trap snap shut completely. I needed them to stand at the altar. I needed Dante to say I do. I needed Genevieve to sign the amended trust fund documents adding the twins as beneficiaries. I needed them to commit the fraud legally and publicly. Only then would I pull the trigger. My phone rang. It was Claire. I picked up immediately. "Did you get it?" Claire whispered. She sounded breathless, like she was hiding in a closet. "I got it, Claire," I said, my voice steady. "You were right. You were right about everything." Claire let out a sob. I knew it. I knew she was lying. Simone, it is getting crazy here. Kiana is out of control. She is demanding that Dante sign a new prenuptial agreement. She wants $5 million cash in a separate account before the wedding day. She says it is security for the babies. She is cashing out, I said. She knows the clock is ticking. She wants to grab as much liquid cash as she can before the truth comes out. Dante is fighting her, Claire said. He does not have the cash. The bank is still freezing the accounts because of the liquidity crisis. Genevieve is furious. She is selling her jewelry, Simone. She is selling the vintage emeralds to pay Kiana's demands. She says she has to protect the heirs. I felt a surge of cold satisfaction. Genevieve loved those emeralds more than she loved her own children. Let her sell them, I said. Let her sell everything. It makes the fall harder. Simone Claire asked, her voice trembling. Are you coming? Kiana keeps asking security if there is a flight manifest with your name on it. She is terrified you are going to show up. Tell her not to worry, I said. Tell her I am enjoying the French countryside. Tell her I am too busy drinking wine to care about her little wedding. You are not coming, Claire asked, sounding disappointed. I did not say that, I said. I said tell her that. Deception is part of the game, Claire. I want them to think I am defeated. I want them to relax. I walked over to the window of the medical center, looking out at the Eiffel Tower. I am booking my flight tonight, Claire, but not commercial. I am taking a private jet. I will land at a secondary airfield 2 hours before the ceremony. And Claire, I asked. Yes. Is Tyrell ready? Claire hesitated. Marcus, your investigator made contact. Tyrell took the money. He accepted the suit. He thinks he is coming to the wedding as a VIP guest of a corporate sponsor. He has no idea he is the main event. Perfect, I said. Listen to me carefully, Claire. This is the most important part. You need to get the file to the church. What file? The USB drive I'm going to mail you tonight. It contains the video of Kiana's live stream. It contains the photos of the watch, and it contains these PDF results. I need you to give it to the audio-visual technician at the venue. Bribe him. Threaten him. I do not care. Just make sure that when I give the signal, that file plays on the main screen. I can do that, Claire said. The AV guy is new. He hates Kiana because she yelled at him during the rehearsal. Good, I said. Claire was silent for a moment. Simone, she asked softly. She asked, Is it yours? Is the baby yours and Dante's? I looked down at my stomach. I felt a kick, strong and definitive. Yes, Claire. He is ours. He is the one Genevieve has been praying for. Claire started to cry again. Thank God. Thank God. That house. It is so dark, Simone. It needs hope. It is not going to get hope, Claire, I said sharply. It is going to get justice. Get some rest. You have a big job to do on Saturday. I hung up the phone. I walked out of the medical center and hailed a taxi. To the airport, please, I told the driver. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. You are leaving Paris, madame. Only for a few days, I said. I have a wedding to crash. As the taxi merged into traffic, I opened my laptop one last time. I logged into the brokerage account I had set up under the name Aurora Holdings. I had been buying sterling stock for weeks, slowly accumulating shares while the price tanked. I now owned 4% of the company. It was a significant stake, but I needed more. I needed control. I looked at the sell orders. There was a massive block of shares that had just gone up for sale. It was a distress sale. The seller was anonymous, but I knew the portfolio code. It was Dante's personal holding company. He was selling his own stock to pay for Kiana's demands. He was selling his ownership in his grandfather's company to pay off a fraudster who was carrying another man's children. It was pathetic, and it was perfect. I typed in the buy order. I bought every single share Dante was selling. The transaction cleared in seconds. My ownership stake jumped to 7%. Combined with the voting rights I would inherit as the guardian of the heir, I was now effectively the most powerful person in Sterling Industries outside of Genevieve herself. And Genevieve was about to lose her mind. I closed the laptop. I sat back and watched the streets of Paris blur by. I thought about the check Genevieve had thrown at me. $6 million. It seemed like so much money at the time. A fortune. A bribe. Now I realized it wasn't a bribe. It was a down payment. She had given me the capital to buy the knife that would cut her throat. I touched the Ziploc bag in my purse, the one containing the printed DNA results. "See you soon, Grandma," I whispered. The taxi sped up, heading toward the airfield. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of blood orange and bruised purple. The storm was coming to Atlanta, and its name was Simone. The wheels of the Gulf Stream touched down on the tarmac of the private airfield in Atlanta with a gentle thud that echoed in the pit of my stomach. It was raining. Of course it was raining. The Georgia humidity rose up to meet the plane as the door opened, wrapping around me like a damp, heavy blanket. It was the scent of my past. It smelled of wet pine needles, asphalt, and old money. I stepped onto the stairs, my hand instinctively going to my midsection. Underneath the layers of silk and wool, my son gave a strong kick, as if he knew he was home. I was wearing armor. Not steel or Kevlar, but cashmere and gabardine. I had chosen an oversized Burberry trench coat, the kind that draped effortlessly from the shoulders and belted loosely at the waist. It was chic, it was expensive, and most importantly, it completely concealed the 7-month baby bump that protruded from my frame. To the outside world, I was just embracing the oversized fashion trend of the European elite. To the Sterling family, I was a mystery wrapped in a coat. My driver was waiting. He held a black umbrella over my head as I slid into the back of the armored SUV. To the St. Regis, I said, my voice calm, even though my pulse was racing. The rehearsal dinner was being held in the Astral Ballroom. It was Genevieve's favorite venue. She liked it because the chandeliers were imported from Austria, and the staff knew better than to make eye contact with her unless spoken to. As we drove through the familiar streets of Buckhead, I watched the city blur by. I saw the restaurants where Dante and I used to have date nights. I saw the park where we said we would take our children one day. Every corner held a ghost. But I was not here to visit ghosts. I was here to exorcise them. We pulled up to the valet stand. The paparazzi were already there, huddled under the awning, like wet rats waiting for a crumb. When I stepped out, the flashes went off in a blinding, stroboscopic wave. "Is that Simone? Simone, look over here. Is it true you bought a vineyard? What do you think of the wedding?" I did not smile. I did not wave. I adjusted my dark sunglasses, even though it was nighttime, and walked past them with the stride of a woman who owns the pavement she walks on. I reached the double doors of the ballroom. I paused for a fraction of a second. Inside that room were the people who had tried to destroy me. Inside that room was the husband who betrayed me and the woman who stole my life. I took a deep breath. My son kicked again. "Showtime," I whispered. The doors opened. The conversation in the room did not just stop. It died. It was as if someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the space. 300 heads turned in unison. The clinking of silverware ceased. The string quartet in the corner faltered on a high C and trailed off into silence. I stood at the top of the small staircase that led down to the dining floor. I kept my coat on. I scanned the room. It was decorated in aggressive shades of gold and cream. It looked less like a wedding dinner and more like a coronation for a dictator. And there they were, the unholy trinity. Genevieve sat at the head table looking like an ice sculpture in a silver gown. Her eyes locked onto me, and I saw a flicker of genuine fear behind her mascara. Dante sat to her right. He looked thinner than I remembered. His tuxedo hung slightly loose on his frame, and his skin had the gray pallor of a man who had not slept in weeks. When he saw me, he stood up so fast he knocked over his water glass. The crystal shattered, but no one moved to clean it up. And then there was Kiana. She was wearing a dress that left nothing to the imagination. It was white tight and covered in sequins. It was designed to show off the pregnancy, but looking at her now, I saw what Claire had meant. The bump looked high, it looked hard, and the way she sat shifting uncomfortably told me she was terrified. I began to walk down the stairs. The sound of my heels on the marble was the only noise in the room. Simone Genevieve said, standing up. Her voice was tight. "We did not expect you to actually come." I reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped. I did not move toward them. I held my ground. The invitation said the honor of my presence was requested. I said, my voice carrying clearly to the back of the room. "I am simply honoring the request, Genevieve. Besides, as a 7% shareholder of Sterling Industries, I have a vested interest in the merger of families. I wanted to see where my investment was going." A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. They knew about the stock. They knew I was buying. Kiana stood up. She waddled, slightly moving with an exaggerated heaviness. "You have some nerve showing up here," she spat. "Look at you. You look ridiculous. Who wears a trench coat to a formal dinner? What are you hiding under there, Simone? Did you get fat in France? Is that why you are covering up?" I looked at her. I looked at the woman carrying the children of a personal trainer while wearing the diamonds of a sterling. "I am wearing Burberry, Kiana," I said coolly. "It is called fashion. You might want to look it up sometime. It is usually found in the sections of the store you are not allowed in." Kiana flushed a deep, angry red. "Security!" she screamed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "Get her out of here. This is my private event. I do not want her here." Two security guards stepped forward, looking uncertain. They looked at Genevieve for orders. Genevieve did not move. She was trapped. She knew that if she threw me out, I would sue for shareholder exclusion. She knew that causing a scene now with the press outside would tank the stock even further. "Stand down!" Genevieve barked at the guards. "She is a guest. Set a place for her at table 4. Table 4. The table by the kitchen. The table for the distant cousins and the unwanted guests." "Thank you, Genevieve," I said. "But I will just have a drink. I am not staying for the food. I hear it is a bit rich for my taste." I walked over to the bar, which was mercifully close to the main table. I ordered a sparkling water with lime. Dante was staring at me. He looked like he was in a trance. He stepped away from Kiana, ignoring her hand clutching his arm. He walked over to me. "You look incredible, Simone," he whispered. I looked at him over the rim of my glass. He smelled of scotch and regret. "You look tired, Dante," I said. "I am," he admitted, his voice cracking. "This merger, the wedding, the liquidity issues. It is a lot." He looked at my coat. "You really do look different," he said. "You are glowing. Is that what freedom looks like?" I almost laughed. He thought it was freedom. He had no idea it was the hormones of his own child flooding my system, giving me radiant skin and thick hair. "It is what truth looks like, Dante," I said. "You should try it sometime." Dante looked down at his shoes. "I miss you, Simone. I know I cannot say that. I know I made my choice. But Kiana, she is not like you. She does not understand me. She does not understand the business. She just wants things. And you gave her things," I said, cutting him off. "You gave her everything. You gave her my home. You gave her my life. You gave her the one thing you said you could not give me." I looked pointedly at Kiana's stomach. Dante followed my gaze. "I had to, Simone," he pleaded. "The legacy. The twins. They are boys. I had to do it for the family name." "The family name," I repeated. I took a step closer to him. I lowered my voice so only he could hear. "Tell me, Dante, have you ever wondered why those babies measured 2 weeks ahead of schedule? Have you ever wondered why Kiana refuses to let your family doctor see her? Have you ever looked at her and felt nothing?" Dante's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that legacy is a funny thing, Dante. Sometimes you chase it so hard you run right off a cliff." "Hey!" Kiana shouted from the table. "Get away from him!" She stormed over, her face twisted in ugly jealousy. She grabbed Dante's arm and yanked him back. "Stop talking to her," she hissed at Dante. "She is trying to get in your head. She is jealous because I have what she could never give you." She turned to me, puffing out her chest, trying to use her pregnancy as a shield. "Why are you really here, Simone?" she asked. "To beg. To try and get him back. It is too late. We are getting married on Saturday, and once those rings are on, you are nothing. You are just a memory." I looked at Kiana. I felt a strange sense of pity for her. She was a grifter, yes. She was cruel, yes. But she was also a pawn in Genevieve's game, just like I had been. She was about to be destroyed, and she did not even see the train coming. "I am not here to get him back, Kiana," I said softly. "I am here to give you a wedding present." I reached into my coat pocket. Kiana flinched as if I pulled out a gun. I pulled out a small velvet box. I placed it on the bar. "Open it on your wedding morning," I said. "Think of it as something old to go with your something new." "What is it?" Kiana asked, eyeing the box suspiciously. "Just a little piece of history," I said. Inside that box was not jewelry. It was a USB drive, a duplicate of the one Claire was currently smuggling into the AV booth. I turned to leave. "Wait!" Dante called out. "Simone!" I stopped, but I did not turn around. "Goodbye, Dante," I said. "Good luck with the wedding. I have a feeling it is going to be unforgettable." I walked out of the ballroom. As the doors closed behind me, I let out a long, shaky breath. My knees felt weak. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me trembling. I walked quickly to the restroom. I went into the handicap stall and locked the door. I unbuttoned the trench coat. My belly was tight and hard. The baby was restless. I rubbed my hands over the fabric of my dress, soothing him. "We did it," I whispered. "We faced them. And they didn't see you." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. "I saw you. You were amazing. I am in the AV booth. The technician took the bribe. The file is loaded. We are green for Saturday." I buttoned the coat back up. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I did not look like a victim. I looked like a predator who had just visited the prey to check its weight before the kill. I walked out of the hotel and into the humid Atlanta night. Dante's face haunted me, the confusion, the doubt. I had planted the seed, and on Saturday at the altar I was going to water that seed with the truth and watch his entire world grow into a jungle of thorns that would tear him apart. I got into the car. To the safe house, I told the driver. The rehearsal was over. The real show was about to begin. The rain lashed against the floor to ceiling windows of the penthouse suite I had rented under a shell company name. It was the night before the wedding of the century. Across the city in the Sterling mansion, I knew the lights were burning low. Kiana was likely getting her final beauty treatments while Genevieve was probably sedated with a glass of sherry, praying that tomorrow would go smoothly. They were preparing for a celebration. I was preparing for an execution. I sat in a high-backed velvet chair facing the door. On the table in front of me sat 3 items. A cashier's check for $100,000, a black velvet pouch containing a Patek Philippe watch, and a paternity test result sealed in a plastic sleeve. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. "We are coming up," he texted. He is nervous. He thinks this is a casting call for a Nike campaign. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. Men like Tyrell Jackson were predictable. Their vanity was their Achilles heel. They believed the world owed them fame simply because they had six-pack abs and a winning smile. He had walked right into the lion's den thinking he was getting a steak dinner. The door opened. Marcus walked in first, shaking the rain off his trench coat. Behind him walked Tyrell. He was even better looking in person than he was in the photos. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his tight t-shirt. He moved with the easy, arrogant swagger of a man who was used to women looking at him. But when he saw me, his step faltered. He looked around the room, realizing there were no cameras, no lighting crews, no casting directors, just a pregnant woman in a silk robe sitting in the dark. "Who is this?" Tyrell asked, turning to Marcus. "You said this was a meeting with the brand director." "It is a meeting with the director," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "Sit down, Tyrell." Tyrell frowned. He looked at the door, but Marcus had already locked it and was standing in front of it, arms crossed. Tyrell realized he had no choice. He walked over to the chair opposite me and sat down, sprawling his legs out in a display of dominance that he did not actually possess. "So you are the boss?" Tyrell asked, looking me up and down. His eyes lingered on my stomach. "You look a little busy to be launching a fitness brand." "I am not launching a brand, Tyrell," I said. "I am launching a torpedo. And you are the warhead." He laughed nervously. "Okay, lady. I do not know what kind of role play this is, but I charge extra for weird stuff." I reached out and picked up the black velvet pouch. I slid it across the table. "Open it," I commanded. Tyrell hesitated. He loosened the drawstrings and tipped the contents into his hand. The Patek Philippe Nautilus slid out heavy and gleaming under the lamplight. Tyrell froze. The color drained from his face, leaving it an ashy gray. He dropped the watch as if it were burning hot. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "I bought your debt, Tyrell," I said, leaning forward. "I paid off your bookie in Atlantic City. He was very happy to get his $40,000. And in exchange he gave me the collateral you left with him. This watch. I can explain," Tyrell stammered. That is a misunderstanding. I was going to buy it back." "It was stolen, Tyrell," I said. "Stolen from Mrs. Vanderwoodson 3 years ago. Grand larceny. That carries a sentence of 5 to 10 years in a federal prison." Tyrell looked at Marcus, then back at me. He was sweating now. The swagger was gone. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tight. "Are you a cop?" "I am not a cop," I said. "I am an investor, and I am looking to make a deal." I pointed to the cashier's check. Tyrell looked at it. He counted the zeros. His eyes widened. $100,000, he breathed. "This is yours," I said. "Plus the watch, plus the forgiveness of your gambling debt. You walk out of here debt-free with $100,000 in your pocket." "What do I have to do?" he asked, suspicious now. "Kill someone." "No," I said. "You just have to attend a wedding." Tyrell looked confused. "A wedding? Whose wedding?" I picked up the third item, the paternity test. I held it up so he could see the names. Dante Sterling and Kiana Jackson. Tyrell flinched. He knew the names. Of course he knew the names. "Kiana," he muttered. "She told me she handled it. She told me to stay away." "Hey." "She handled nothing," I said. "She is marrying a billionaire tomorrow, Tyrell. She is telling the world that the twin boys she is carrying belong to him. She is about to secure a trust fund worth millions." Tyrell laughed bitterly. "That girl, she always was ambitious. She told me she found a mark. She told me she found some rich idiot who wanted kids so bad he wouldn't ask questions." The room went cold. "So you knew," I asked softly. "You knew the babies were yours, and you let her sell them to another family?" Tyrell shrugged. He leaned back, regaining some of his composure. "Look, lady, I am a trainer. I make $50 an hour. I got 2 other kids in Decatur I barely see. Kiana said she wanted a better life. She said if I kept my mouth shut, she would cut me a check once she got the ring. Why should I stop her? Those kids are better off being Sterlings than Jacksons, trust me." I felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't just Kiana. It was him too. They were both willing to trade innocent children for cash. They were perfect for each other. "Kiana lied to you, Tyrell," I said. "She is not going to cut you a check. She is signing a prenup that locks down the money. Once those babies are born, she is going to ghost you. Or worse, she is going to hire someone to make sure you never talk." Tyrell frowned. "She wouldn't do that. We have history. She is marrying Dante Sterling tomorrow," I said. "She is about to be royalty. You are a loose end, Tyrell. And loose ends get cut." I pushed the check closer to him. "But I am offering you a guarantee, cash, today. All you have to do is show up. Show up and do what Tyrell asked, eyeing the check. When the priest asks if there is any reason these two should not be wed, I want you to stand up. I want you to look Kiana in the eye. And I want you to say one sentence." "What sentence?" "I want you to say, 'I am here for my sons.' Tyrell went silent. He looked at the check. He looked at the watch. He looked at the door where Marcus stood like a sentinel. He was doing the math. On one hand, he had a furious ex-girlfriend and a vague promise of future money. On the other hand, he had immediate cash freedom from debt and immunity from prison. For a man like Tyrell, it wasn't even a choice. "I want the watch back now," he said, reaching for it. I placed my hand over the watch. "No," I said. "You get the watch after the wedding. Consider it your exit bonus. You get the check now." Tyrell licked his lips. He picked up the check. He folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. "You got yourself a date, lady," he said. "But I need a suit. I cannot crash a billionaire wedding looking like this." "It is taken care of," I said. "Marcus has a tuxedo waiting for you in the car, tailored to your measurements. We bought it for you. You are going to look like $1 million, Tyrell, which is ironic because you sold your children for 10% of that." Tyrell stood up. He did not look ashamed. He looked relieved. "Hey, business is business, right?" he said. "Just make sure I get that watch back. I have a buyer for it in Miami." "Get him out of here," I said to Marcus. "Keep him at the safe house tonight. No phone, no internet. I do not want Kiana tipping him off." Marcus nodded. He opened the door. Tyrell paused in the doorway. He looked back at me. "You really hate her, don't you?" he asked. "I do not hate her," I said, rubbing my stomach. "I thank her. She gave me the keys to the kingdom. Now get out." The door closed. I was alone again. The rain beat harder against the glass. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the skyline of Atlanta. Somewhere out there, Dante was sleeping or trying to. He was probably thinking about his vows. He was probably promising to love and cherish a woman who viewed him as a walking ATM. I felt a kick. "It is almost time," I whispered to my son. "Daddy is going to learn a hard lesson tomorrow. But do not worry. We will be there to pick up the pieces, or at least the pieces we want to keep." I went into the bedroom. On the bed laid my outfit for tomorrow. It was not a trench coat. It was a dress. A red dress, the color of blood, the color of war. Genevieve had worn white to my wedding to spite me. She had made sure everyone knew she was the pure matriarch and I was the outsider. Tomorrow, I would wear red. I would be the scarlet letter burning in the middle of their whitewashed lies. I lay down, but I did not sleep. I replayed the plan in my head. The AV booth was secured. The DNA results were loaded. The biological father was paid off. The shares were purchased. I had checkmate in 4 moves. But the most satisfying part wasn't the victory. It was the look on Genevieve's face. I wanted to see the exact moment her heart broke. Not because I was cruel, but because she needed to understand that you cannot play God with people's lives without eventually facing the devil. And tomorrow at 11:00 a.m. at the Cathedral of St. Philip, the devil was wearing Prada. The Cathedral of St. Philip was not just a church. It was a monument to old Southern money and aggressive piety. The stone walls had absorbed generations of whispered secrets, and today they were about to absorb the loudest one yet. I sat in the back pew, hidden in the shadows of the choir loft. My red dress was a slash of crimson against the dark wood. Around me, 500 of Atlanta's elite fanned themselves with programs printed on silk. The air smelled of white roses and expensive perfume, a cloying sweetness that made me nauseous. The press was everywhere. Genevieve had allowed cameras inside. She wanted the world to see the merger of the Sterling bloodline with the youthful vitality of Kiana Jackson. She wanted a spectacle. I looked down at my phone. 1 bar of signal. It was enough. I sent a single emoji to Claire. A green light. Up in the audio-visual booth high above the altar, Claire saw the message. I knew her hands were shaking. I knew she was terrified of Genevieve, but I also knew she hated the lies more than she feared the punishment. The organ music swelled. It was Wagner's bridal chorus played with a pompous intensity that rattled the stained glass windows. The double doors opened. Kiana stepped out. She was a vision of excess. Her dress was a custom creation from Milan encrusted with so many crystals she looked like a walking chandelier. But the most prominent feature was the baby bump. It was thrust forward tight against the satin, a biological billboard advertising her claim to the throne. She walked down the aisle smiling at the cameras. She did not look at Dante. She looked at the lenses. She was not walking toward a husband. She was walking toward a bank vault. Dante stood at the altar. He looked like a man facing a firing squad. His face was pale, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. He was sweating. Even from the back of the room I could see the damp sheen on his forehead. Genevieve stood in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. It was a perfect performance. The proud matriarch welcoming the next generation. The music faded. The priest, a man with a booming voice and a weak chin, stepped forward. "Dearly beloved," he began, "we are gathered here today in the sight of God and these witnesses to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." I stood up. I did not rush. I simply rose from the pew, my red dress rustling softly. I walked out of the shadows and into the center aisle. Heads turned. It started as a ripple, a few confused glances from the back rows. Then it became a wave. People gasped. Whispers hissed through the sanctuary like steam escaping a pipe. "Is that Simone? Why is she wearing red? Look at her stomach." I kept walking. I did not look at the guests. I looked straight ahead at the altar. Kiana saw me first. Her smile faltered. Her eyes widened in panic. She grabbed Dante's arm, digging her nails into his tuxedo jacket. Dante looked up. When he saw me, the color drained from his face completely. He looked like he was about to faint. Genevieve spun around. Her face contorted into a mask of pure fury. "Security," she hissed. "Get her out." Two guards started to move toward me from the side aisles, but the priest was still speaking. He had reached the critical line. The line I had paid $100,000 to interrupt. "If there is anyone present who knows just cause why this couple may not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. I stopped 10 feet from the altar. I stood alone in the center of the aisle, a scarlet figure in a sea of white and beige. I did not speak. I raised my hand slowly and pointed a single finger toward the massive LED screens that flanked the altar. These screens were supposed to display a montage of Dante and Kiana's love story later in the ceremony. Now they were about to display the truth. I snapped my fingers. High above us, Claire hit the spacebar. The screens flickered to life. It was not a romantic slideshow. The audio boomed through the cathedral sound system, crisp and clear. "I am not a mistress. I am his fiancé, and I am carrying your grandsons." The video of Kiana's live stream filled the massive screens. Her face was distorted by the harsh kitchen lighting, her voice slurring with alcohol. The congregation gasped. Genevieve stood up, clutching her pearls. "Turn it off!" she screamed. "Turn it off now!" But the video cut to a new scene. It was a security camera feed from a gym locker room. It showed Kiana wrapped around a man who was definitely not Dante. A man with a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. Then the image changed again. It was a split screen. On the left was a document labeled DNA Analysis Donor Dante Sterling. On the right was a document labeled DNA Analysis Fetus A and Fetus B. A bright red line connected the two documents, and in the center, in bold black letters, was the word mismatch, probability of paternity 0%. The church erupted. It was chaos. People were standing up, shouting, pointing at the screens. The press photographers were going wild, their flashes popping like gunfire. Kiana screamed. It was a primal sound of rage and terror. She lunged toward the AV booth as if she could claw the images out of the air. "You lied!" she shrieked, pointing at me. "That is fake." She faked it. I stood calm in the storm. I watched Dante. He was staring at the screen. He was reading the numbers. 0%. He turned to Kiana. His voice was quiet, but in the sudden lull of the crowd it carried. "They aren't mine?" he asked. Kiana grabbed his lapels, shaking him. "Don't listen to her, Dante. She is jealous. She is barren. She is trying to ruin us." Dante pushed her away. He looked at the screen again. Then he looked at me. He looked at my stomach. I rested my hand gently on my bump. I nodded once. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back, holding onto the altar rail for support. Genevieve was marching down the aisle toward me, her face purple with rage. "You did this," she spat. "You vindictive little witch. You hacked our system. You faked these records. I will have you arrested. I will have you destroyed. I did not fake anything, Genevieve." I said, my voice calm and clear, cutting through the noise. "I just read the fine print." I pointed to the screen one last time. The image changed. It was a live feed now. But not from a camera. It was a digital document. A birth certificate application. Name of Father Dante Sterling. Name of Mother Simone Sterling. Genetic match 99.99%. Genevieve froze. She looked at the screen. She looked at my stomach. "You," she whispered, "you are pregnant." I smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I am," I said. "And unlike the fraud standing at the altar, this one is real. This is the heir you paid $6 million to get rid of, Genevieve." The crowd went silent again, trying to process the second bombshell. Kiana was sobbing now, loud, ugly tears. She looked around for an ally, for someone to save her. And then the final piece of the trap snapped shut. From the third row, a man stood up. He was wearing an expensive tuxedo that fit him perfectly. He walked out into the aisle and stood next to me. It was Tyrell. He looked at Kiana. He looked at the weeping bride. "Hey, baby," he said, his voice amplified by the acoustics of the stone walls. "You look good in white." Kiana stopped crying. She stared at him in horror. "Tyrell," she whispered. "I am here for my sons," Kiana Tyrell said loudly. "Just like you asked." He turned to the congregation. He spread his arms wide. "Those are my boys," he announced. "I want to thank the Sterling family for paying for their prenatal care. That was real generous of you." Dante made a sound like a wounded animal. He turned to Kiana. "You knew," he shouted. "You knew the whole time." Kiana backed away, shaking her head. "No, Dante. No. He is lying. Simone paid him." "I did pay him," I interjected. "I paid him to come here and tell the truth. Something you seem incapable of doing." Dante looked at Kiana. He looked at the woman he had destroyed his marriage for. The woman he had sold his company shares for. "Get out," he whispered. "What?" Kiana gasped. "Get out!" Dante screamed, his voice breaking. "Get out of my church! Get out of my life!" He turned to the priest. "The wedding is off." Kiana looked around. She saw the cameras. She saw the disgust on the faces of the socialites she had tried so hard to impress. She saw Genevieve looking at her with murderous intent. She realized the game was over. She didn't apologize. She didn't beg. The mask fell away completely. "Fine," she spat, tearing the veil off her head and throwing it on the floor. "Keep your boring life, Dante. You are broke anyway. I checked the accounts this morning. You are worthless." She turned to Tyrell. "You happy now?" she hissed. "You ruined everything." Tyrell shrugged. "I got a new watch," he said, flashing the Patek Philippe on his wrist. "I am good." Kiana stormed down the aisle past me. She slammed her shoulder into mine as she passed, but I didn't budge. I stood like a statue. As she reached the doors, the press swarmed her. She pushed through them, disappearing into the rain. The church was left in a stunned silence. Dante sat down on the altar steps. He put his head in his hands and began to weep. Genevieve stood in front of me. She was trembling. She looked old. The power, the arrogance, it was all gone. "Simone," she said, her voice shaking. "Is it true? Is the baby? Is it a boy?" I looked down at her. "It is a boy, Genevieve," I said. She reached out a hand as if to touch me. My grandson, she whispered. I took a step back. No, Genevieve, I said. He is my son. You forfeited your title when you wrote that check. I turned my back on her. I turned my back on Dante. I walked back up the aisle the way I came. The guests parted for me like the Red Sea. They stared at me with a mixture of fear and awe. I walked out of the cathedral into the rain. My driver was waiting. To the airport, madame, he asked. No, I said, looking back at the church where the Sterling Empire was burning to the ground. To the lawyer's office, I said. I have a company to take over. The cathedral was silent, but the air crackled with a static energy that made the hair on my arms stand up. The massive LED screens, which had just displayed the damning DNA results, flickered once. The image of the documents dissolved. The church went dark for a split second before the screens illuminated again. This time, the resolution was crystal clear. It was 4K video shot with a high-definition long-range lens. The scene on the screen was dark and rainy. It was the parking lot of a secluded motel on the outskirts of Atlanta. The timestamp in the corner read 3 days ago. The camera zoomed in. The focus was razor-sharp. It showed a black SUV. The door was open. Kiana stood there. She was not wearing her carefully curated bridal white. She was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, her face devoid of makeup, her expression twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Standing in front of her, leaning casually against the hood of the car, was Tyrell. The audio kicked in. It was recorded using a directional microphone so clear it picked up the sound of the rain hitting the pavement. You are pushing it, Tyrell, Kiana hissed on the screen. Her voice boomed through the cathedral, echoing off the stone pillars. I told you to wait. I am done waiting, Tyrell's voice replied, smooth and unbothered. I got debts, Kiana. You are about to marry a billionaire. I think you can spare a few grand for the father of your kids. Kiana lunged at him on the screen. She looked feral. She grabbed the front of his shirt, shaking him. The entire congregation watched in horrified fascination. This was not the blushing bride who had walked down the aisle minutes ago. This was a street fighter desperate to protect her Khan. Shut up! Kiana screamed on the video. Her face was contorted, the veins in her neck bulging. Shut up, you idiot! She looked around wildly in the video, checking for witnesses. She had no idea the lens of my private investigator was capturing every frame from 100 yards away. Listen to me, Kiana growled, pulling Tyrell close. You wait until I walk down that aisle. You wait until I say I do. She took a breath, her eyes manic. Wait until I give birth, she shouted. Wait until I get the shares from that idiot Dante. Once the trust fund unlocks, I will have access to $50 million in liquid assets. I will split it with you. But you have to let me finish the job. The video froze on Kiana's face. Her mouth was open in a snarl, her eyes filled with greed. The caption appeared at the bottom of the screen. Asset acquisition strategy. Target Dante Sterling. The screen went black. The silence in the church was deafening. It was the kind of silence that happens after a bomb detonates before the debris starts to fall. 500 heads turned slowly from the screen to the altar. Kiana stood there. Her hands were trembling by her sides. Her face was pale, stripped of all color. She looked small. She looked cheap. Dante stood a few feet away from her. He looked like a man who had been punched in the gut. He was breathing hard, his chest heaving. The word idiot hung in the air between them. She had not just cheated on him, she had ridiculed him. She had planned to rob him blind and laugh about it with her lover. From the front row, a sound broke the silence. It was a gasp, a desperate intake of air. Genevieve Sterling, the Iron Lady of Atlanta, clutched her chest. Her hand crumpled the silk of her silver gown over her heart. Her face, which had been a mask of fury moments ago, turned a terrifying shade of gray. She swayed on her heels. Mother Dante shouted, rushing toward her. Genevieve collapsed back into the pew, her eyes rolling back in her head. The shock was too much. The public humiliation, the destruction of the lineage, the realization that she had been played for a fool by a girl she considered beneath her, it had all converged into a physical blow. Guests screamed. A doctor rushed from the third row. But I did not move. I stood in the center aisle perfectly still. I watched Genevieve gasping for air. I felt no pity. She had orchestrated this. She had built this stage. She had invited these players. I was just the one who turned on the lights. Kiana saw her chance. With Dante distracted by his mother, she turned to run. She gathered up her heavy crystal-encrusted skirts and made a dash for the side exit. But she was not fast enough. Tyrell stepped out from the shadows of the side aisle. He moved with the easy grace of an athlete. He blocked her path, his arms crossed over his chest. "Going somewhere, babe?" he asked, his voice projecting without a microphone. Kiana skid to a halt. She looked back at Dante, who was kneeling beside his mother. She looked at the guests, who were now standing up, phones out, recording the demise of the Sterling dynasty. "Let me pass," she hissed at Tyrell. Tyrell laughed. He looked at the crowd. He looked at the cameras. He was enjoying this. This was his moment. He was the star of the show he didn't even know he was auditioning for. "I do not think so," Tyrell said. "I think we need to clear something up first." He walked past Kiana toward the altar. He stepped up onto the raised platform where the priest was cowering behind the lectern. Tyrell looked at Dante, who was now looking up from his mother, his eyes filled with tears and confusion. Tyrell pointed at Kiana's stomach. "Those are my boys," he announced. His voice was casual, almost bored. "We made them in the locker room at Equinox, about 2 weeks before she met you." He looked at Dante with a pitying smirk. "She told me you were an easy mark," Tyrell continued. "She said you were desperate. She said your mommy wanted a grandkid so bad she wouldn't check the receipts. And she was right. You people are rich, but you are not smart." Dante stood up slowly. He left his mother's side. He walked toward Tyrell. His fists were clenched. "You knew," Dante whispered. "You let her do this." Tyrell shrugged. He checked the time on the Patek Philippe watch I had given him. "Hey man, everyone has got to eat," he said. "But then your ex-wife made me a better offer." He pointed at me. Dante followed his finger. He looked at me. I stood there in my red dress and my Burberry trench coat, the center of the storm. Tyrell stepped down from the altar. He walked over to Kiana, who was sobbing now, huddled against a pillar. He leaned in and whispered something in her ear. She flinched as if he had slapped her. Tyrell kept walking. He walked right past me. As he passed, he winked. "Pleasure doing business with you, Simone," he said softly. He walked out of the church, disappearing into the rain with $100,000 in his pocket, and his debt cleared. He left behind a wreckage that no amount of money could fix. Kiana slid down the pillar to the floor. She buried her face in her hands. Her white dress was pooling around her like a shroud. Dante looked at her. He looked at the woman he had destroyed his life for. "Get out," he said. His voice was low, but it carried a finality that made Kiana look up. "Dante," she sobbed, reaching out a hand. "Get out!" he screamed. The sound tore from his throat, a raw, animalistic roar of pain. "Get out of my sight!" Kiana scrambled to her feet. She looked at the hostile faces of the crowd. She saw no sympathy. She saw only disgust. She ran. She ran down the center aisle, past the cameras, past the judging eyes, and out into the storm. Now it was just us. Me, Dante, and Genevieve, who was being fanned by the doctor in the front pew. The church was quiet again. The show was over. Or so they thought. Dante looked at me. He looked broken. He looked like a man who had lost everything. "I am sorry," he whispered. "Simone, I am so sorry." I looked at him. I looked at the man I had loved for 5 years. The man I had tried to build a life with. "It is too late for sorry, Dante," I said. I began to walk toward the altar. The guests parted for me. I walked with my head high. I stopped in front of the first pew. I looked down at Genevieve. She was conscious now. Her eyes were open. She was looking at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. "You won!" She wheezed, her voice weak. Are you happy, Simone? You destroyed the wedding. You destroyed the reputation. You left us with nothing. No heir, no legacy. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had called me a barren tree. I did not leave you with nothing. Genevieve, I said. I reached for the belt of my trench coat. The sound of the fabric sliding through the buckle was loud in the silence. I undid the buttons, one by one. I shrugged the heavy coat off my shoulders. It fell to the floor in a heap of beige gabardine. I stood there in my red silk dress. The dress was tight, it clung to every curve, and it clung most tightly to the high round bump of my 7-month pregnancy. The gasp that went through the room this time was different. It wasn't shock, it was awe. I placed my hands on my stomach, cradling the life inside me. You wanted a grandson, Genevieve? I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong. You wanted a male heir to carry on the Sterling name. You were willing to pay $6 million to buy him. You were willing to drug me to stop him. I took a step closer to her. Well, here he is. Dante stared at my stomach. His eyes were wide, filled with tears. He reached out a hand, trembling. Simone, he choked out. Is he? He is yours, Dante, I said. Conceive the weekend of our anniversary. The one weekend I didn't take your mother's poison. Dante fell to his knees. He looked at my stomach as if it were a holy relic. My son, he whispered. I have a son. Genevieve struggled to sit up. Her eyes were locked on my midsection. The greed was back in her gaze, replacing the pain. An heir, she whispered. A true heir. A Sterling. She looked at me, and for the first time in her life, she smiled at me. It was a terrifying, predatory smile. Simone, she said, her voice gaining strength. My dear Simone, this changes everything. Come home. Come back to the mansion. We will take care of you. We will hire the best doctors. He is the future of the company. I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that cut through her fantasy. I looked at her with pure disdain. You think you can own him? I asked. You think because he has your blood he belongs to you. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a document. It was a copy of the trust fund bylaws, the document I had written myself years ago, the document Genevieve had used to control everyone in her life. I stepped closer to her. I held the document up. Do you remember Clause 14? Genevieve, I asked. Genevieve's smile faltered. The clause about the guardian, she whispered. Exactly, I said. I turned to the crowd. I addressed the witnesses, the press, and the lawyers present. The Sterling Family Trust states clearly that in the event of the incapacity or moral failure of the primary trustee's control of the assets passes to the legal guardian of the primary heir. I looked back at Dante kneeling on the floor. You sold your shares, Dante, to pay for a fraud. You have no voting rights. I looked at Genevieve. And you, Genevieve, you just admitted in front of 500 witnesses that you tried to buy an heir from a woman who was not your son's wife. You are unfit. I placed my hand on my belly. I am the mother. I am the guardian. And as of this moment, I am the majority shareholder of Sterling Industries. Genevieve screamed. It was a sound of pure despair. You cannot do this, she shrieked, trying to stand up, but failing. That money belongs to the family. I am the family now, I said coldly. I looked at Dante. He was still kneeling, looking at my stomach with longing. Can I touch him? He asked. I looked at him. I saw the regret. I saw the love. But I also saw the weakness that had let his mother abuse me for years. I stepped back. No, Dante, I said. You made your choice. You chose the easy way. You chose the lie. I picked up my coat from the floor. I draped it over my arm. My son will know who his father is, I said. I will tell him. But he will also know that his father was a man who had to lose everything to learn the value of what he had. I turned to walk away. Simone, Dante called out. Please, Where are you going? I stopped at the end of the aisle. The heavy wooden doors were open. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds, illuminating the wet pavement. I am going to the office, Dante, I said. I looked back at them one last time. Genevieve broken in the pew. Dante kneeling in the wreckage of his wedding. I have a board meeting to schedule, I said. And you are both fired. I walked out of the cathedral. The paparazzi flashes went off, blinding white light, capturing the moment of my victory. The woman in red, the mother of the heir, the new queen of the Sterling Empire. I put my hand on my belly. We did it, little one, I whispered. We took it all. The silence in the cathedral was not peaceful. It was heavy. It was the suffocating silence of a tomb where a dynasty had just been buried alive. I stood at the end of the aisle, watching the wreckage I had orchestrated. Genevieve was slumped in the pew, looking like a wax figure left too long in the sun. Dante was on his knees, staring at the empty space where his future used to be. But I was not done. There was one piece of the puzzle left to place. The legal one. The heavy oak doors at the back of the church opened again. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Walking through them was a man who looked like he owned the very air he breathed. He was 6'2" with silver hair and a suit that cost more than Dante's entire car. His name was Jameson Ford. He was the managing partner of the most prestigious law firm in Georgia. He was the kind of lawyer people hired when they wanted to kill a company, not just sue it. And he was my lawyer. He walked down the center aisle with a stride that commanded attention. The guests, who were still whispering and recording on their phones, parted for him instinctively. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a stack of documents in the other. He stopped in front of me. He nodded respectfully. "Madam Sterling," he said. "Mr. Ford," I replied. "Is it done?" "It is done," he said. He walked past me and approached Genevieve. She looked up at him, her eyes unfocused. She knew who he was. Everyone in Atlanta knew who Jameson Ford was. He was the Grim Reaper of the corporate world. "Genevieve Sterling," he said, his voice projecting clearly without shouting. "I am serving you with an emergency court order issued 10 minutes ago by the Superior Court of Fulton County." He handed her the stack of papers. She did not take them, so he dropped them into her lap. They landed with a heavy thud. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "It is a temporary restraining order and an asset freeze," Mr. Ford explained. "Based on the admission of fraud you made in this sanctuary, and the evidence provided by your majority shareholder, Simone Sterling, the court has found probable cause to suspect mass embezzlement and mismanagement of the Sterling Family Trust." Genevieve's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Effective immediately, Mr. Ford continued, "All accounts associated with Sterling Industries and the family trust are frozen. Your personal accounts are frozen pending a forensic audit. You are barred from entering the company premises. You are barred from making any financial transactions over $100. Security is currently changing the locks on your office and your residence." "My residence," Genevieve gasped. "You cannot lock me out of my own home." "The deed to the Buckhead estate is held by the trust," Mr. Ford said coldly. "And since the trust is now under investigation for fraud, the assets are under the control of the court-appointed interim guardian." He turned and pointed at me. "Mrs. Simone Sterling." The crowd gasped again. I watched the color drain from Genevieve's face until she looked like a ghost. She had not just lost her power. She had lost her roof. The home she had used to intimidate me, the home where she had thrown that check in my face, was now mine. Dante stood up slowly. He looked from the lawyer to his mother, and then to me. The reality was sinking in. The fog of his entitlement was lifting, revealing the wasteland of his choices. "You took everything," he whispered. His voice was raw. "You took the company. You took the house." I looked at him. I did not feel anger anymore. I felt nothing. "I did not take anything, Dante," I said. "I recovered it. I recovered the assets you were throwing away on a stripper who was pregnant with another man's children." Dante flinched at the word stripper. He looked around wildly. "Where is she?" he screamed. "Where is Kiana?" He ran toward the back of the church. He needed a target for his rage. He needed someone to blame because looking in the mirror was too painful. But Kiana had not made it far. My head of security, Marcus, was walking through the doors, dragging Kiana by the arm. She was kicking and screaming, her white dress torn and muddy from where she had slipped in the rain outside. "Let me go!" she shrieked. "You cannot hold me!" "I did not do anything. Actually, Miss Jackson," Mr. Ford said calmly, turning to face her. "You are named as a co-conspirator in the fraud investigation. Attempting to flee the jurisdiction is a felony." Marcus threw her forward. She stumbled and fell to the floor in the center of the aisle, right in front of Dante. Dante looked down at her. He looked at the woman who had whispered lies in his ear. The woman who had convinced him to sell his shares. The woman who had cost him his wife and his son. "You," he growled. It was a sound so low and guttural it did not sound human. Kiana looked up at him. Her mascara was running down her face in black streaks. "Dante, baby," she pleaded. "Listen to me, they are lying. We can fix this. Just get the money." "The money?" Dante laughed. A broken, hysterical sound. "There is no money, Kiana. Did you not hear them? It is gone. It is all gone." Kiana's face changed. The fear vanished, replaced by pure venom. "Then you are useless to me," she spat. "I should have stuck with Tyrell. At least he is a real man. You are just a mama's boy with a checkbook." Something inside Dante snapped. The last thread of his sanity broke. He roared. He lunged at her. His hands were reaching for her throat. He wanted to hurt her. He wanted to silence the voice that had led him to ruin. "I am going to kill you," he screamed. Kiana screamed and scrambled backward, crab walking across the stone floor. But before Dante could reach her, a wall of black muscle moved in front of him. It was my bodyguards, 2 of them. They moved with the speed of professionals. One of them caught Dante by the chest. The other grabbed his arm. They stopped him effortlessly. Dante struggled, thrashing against them, but he was weak. He was a man who had never fought a real battle in his life. "Let me go!" Dante shouted, spitting foam. "Let me kill her!" I stepped forward. "Let him go," I said to the guards. They hesitated, but they obeyed, stepping back. Dante stood there panting, his chest heaving. He looked at Kiana cowering on the floor. Then he looked at me. "Why did you stop them?" he asked. "Why did you not let me do it?" "Because I do not want the father of my son to go to prison for murder." "Dante," I said. I walked closer to him. I was close enough to smell the fear and the sweat on him. "You are not going to jail, Dante," I said. "That is the easy way out. You get 3 meals a day and a bed." "No." I leaned in close. "You are going to stay here. You are going to live in this city. You are going to watch me raise your son. You are going to watch me run your company. You are going to watch me live the life you threw away. And every single day you are going to know that you did this to yourself." Dante looked at me. His eyes were filled with tears. "Simone, please," he begged. "Please, I will do anything. I will sign anything. Just give me another chance. I want to know my son." I placed a hand on my stomach. "You will know him," I said. "You will know him from the photos I post online. You will know him from the news articles about his success. But you will never hold him. Not until you earn it. And looking at you now, Dante, I do not think you have enough currency left to buy that kind of redemption." I turned to Mr. Ford. "Finish the paperwork," I said. "I want the eviction notices served by noon." I turned to Marcus. "Hand Ms. Jackson over to the police," I said. "They are waiting outside. Tyrell has already given his statement. I think they have a nice cell waiting for her." I looked at Genevieve one last time. She was weeping softly into her hands. A broken old woman in a silver dress. "Goodbye, Genevieve," I said. "Genevieve, try not to stress. It is bad for your blood pressure." I walked out of the church. The rain had stopped completely. The sun was shining bright and hot on the pavement. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. It tasted like victory. My car pulled up. I got in. As we drove away, I looked back through the tinted window. I saw the police car's lights flashing blue and red against the gray stone of the cathedral. I saw Kiana being handcuffed. I saw Dante sitting on the steps, his head in his hands alone in the middle of the chaos. I turned away. To the office, madame, the driver asked. Yes, I said. But stop at the bakery first. The bakery, madame. Yes, I said, smiling and resting my hand on my baby. The air is craving a croissant. And I think we can afford the whole shop now. The Superior Court of Fulton County was a place where marriages went to die, but today it was the place where a matriarchy was going to be buried. The air in the courtroom was stale, recycled, and cold. It smelled of floor wax and expensive cologne masking the scent of desperation. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Jameson Ford, my shark of a lawyer. I was wearing a navy blue suit that was tailored to accommodate my 8-month baby bump. I looked professional. I looked maternal. I looked like the victim Genevieve Sterling had created and the monster she now feared. Across the aisle, Genevieve sat with her legal team. She looked diminished. The past month had not been kind to her. Without her mansion, without her staff, and without the constant validation of her social circle, she had withered. Her silver hair was slightly unkempt. Her suit was from a season ago. But her eyes were still hard. She still believed she was the victim. She still believed that the world owed her deference simply because her last name was Sterling. Dante sat behind her in the gallery. He was not a party to this specific hearing, but he was a witness. He looked like a ghost. He had lost weight. His eyes were hollow. He stared at the back of my head as if trying to telepathically beg for forgiveness. The judge, Honorable Justice Marcus Thorne, no relation to me, hammered his gavel. We are here to hear the motion regarding the permanent removal of Genevieve Sterling as trustee of the Sterling Family Trust, and the countersuit regarding the validity of Simone Sterling's guardianship, the judge said. Genevieve's lawyer stood up. He was a man named Mr. Pendergast, a pompous fixture of the Atlanta legal scene who relied more on his golf handicap than his case law. Your Honor, Mr. Pendergast boomed. This entire case is a farce. The plaintiff, Simone Sterling, has engaged in a hostile takeover of my client's family assets based on a technicality. She has manipulated the bylaws of the trust to seize control. Furthermore, we argue that she is unfit to serve as guardian of the heir, as she has displayed vindictive behavior designed to alienate the child's grandmother. I watched Genevieve. She nodded smugly. She thought this was a business dispute. She thought we were arguing about money. She had no idea I had brought a weapon into the courtroom that had nothing to do with finance. Jameson Ford stood up. He did not boom. He did not posture. He simply walked to the podium with a single manila folder. Your Honor, Jameson said, his voice smooth as silk. We are not here to argue about technicalities. The trust bylaws are clear. But the defense claims my client is vindictive. They claim Mrs. Genevieve Sterling is a loving grandmother who only wants what is best for the family legacy. Jameson paused. He turned to look at Genevieve. We would like to introduce into evidence Exhibit C, Jameson said. He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. This is a recording taken 6 months ago in the office of Dr. Alan Evans, the former family physician for the Sterling family, Jameson explained. Genevieve froze. Her hand went to her throat. She remembered Dr. Evans. She remembered paying him. But she did not know I had visited him. Objection, Mr. Pendergast shouted. Relevance. It goes to the character and fitness of the trustee, Jameson said calmly. And it goes to a pattern of criminal abuse against my client. The judge narrowed his eyes. Overruled. Play the recording. The courtroom fell silent. Jameson plugged the drive into the presentation system. Static filled the air for a second, and then Dr. Evans' voice rang out clear and terrified. She made me do it. She said Simone wasn't suitable. She said her background wasn't elite enough. Then my voice on the recording asking the question that would seal Genevieve's fate. "Tell me exactly what she paid you to do, doctor." And then the answer. The answer that made every person in the gallery gasp. "She paid me $50,000 a year to inject you with high-dose synthetic contraceptives disguised as fertility vitamins. She gave me specific instructions to keep you barren until Dante could find a more suitable partner. She said she didn't want your blood mixing with hers." The recording ended. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a building. Dante stood up in the gallery. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Mom," he whispered. Genevieve did not turn around. She stared straight ahead, her face a mask of absolute terror. Dante walked to the railing that separated the gallery from the court. "You drugged her!" Dante said, his voice rising to a scream. "You drugged my wife. We tried for 3 years. We cried ourselves to sleep. I thought I was broken. I thought she was broken. And it was you." "Mr. Sterling, sit down," the bailiff warned, moving toward him. "You killed my children!" Dante screamed, tears streaming down his face. "You prevented my children from existing because you are a racist, controlling monster." "Dante, sit down," Genevieve hissed, not looking at him. "No," Dante shouted. "Dante, I will not sit down." He looked at the judge. "Your Honor, she is guilty. She is evil. Take it all away from her. Take everything." The bailiff grabbed Dante and escorted him out of the courtroom. As the doors closed, his sobs echoed in the hallway. I looked at Genevieve. She was shaking now. Her hands were gripping the table so hard her knuckles were white. Mr. Pendergast looked at his client. He looked at the judge. He looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. He knew he had lost. Jameson Ford continued. "Your Honor, this is not just a breach of fiduciary duty. This is medical battery. This is bodily harm. This is fraud." Mrs. Genevieve Sterling used the funds from the family trust to pay a doctor to assault her daughter-in-law's reproductive system. A woman who does that cannot be trusted with a goldfish, let alone a multi-million-dollar estate and the welfare of a child. The judge looked at Genevieve. His expression was one of pure disgust. "Mrs. Sterling," the judge said, his voice low and dangerous. "Is this recording authentic?" Genevieve stood up slowly. She tried to muster some of her old arrogance, but it crumbled. "I did it for the family," she whispered. "She wasn't one of us. She didn't belong. I had to protect the bloodline." The judge slammed his gavel down so hard the wood cracked. "You did not protect anything, Mrs. Sterling," the judge boomed. "You committed a crime so personal and so violation that it turns my stomach." The judge turned to the court reporter. "Let the record show that the court finds Genevieve Sterling unfit to serve as trustee. She is immediately removed from all positions of power within the Sterling entities. Control of the trust is permanently transferred to the legal guardian of the heir, Mrs. Simone Sterling." Genevieve let out a sob, but the judge was not finished. Furthermore, the judge continued, "I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office. Based on the evidence presented today, I am recommending charges be filed for conspiracy to commit medical battery and fraud." Genevieve's legs gave out. She collapsed back into her chair, covering her face with her hands. "Mr. Bailiff," the judge said, "please escort Mrs. Sterling out of my courtroom and ensure she does not leave the jurisdiction pending the DA's investigation." 2 bailiffs moved in. They did not touch her gently. They grabbed her by the arms and hauled her up. Genevieve looked at me as she was dragged away. "Simone," she pleaded. "Simone, please. I am an old woman. You cannot let me go to prison. Who will take care of me?" I stood up. I smoothed my navy blue blazer over my stomach. I looked her in the eye. "The state of Georgia will take care of you, Genevieve," I said softly. "I hear the healthcare in prison is very basic. No special vitamins, just exactly what you deserve," she screamed as they dragged her through the side door. The courtroom began to clear out. The reporters were running for the doors, desperate to file their stories. Jameson Ford closed his briefcase. "Congratulations, Simone," he said. "You got it all. The trust, the company, the house, and justice." I looked at the empty chair where Genevieve had sat. "Not quite all, Jameson," I said. I picked up my purse. "There is one more thing I need to do." I walked out of the courtroom. Dante was sitting on a bench in the hallway. He had his head in his hands. When he saw me, he stood up. "Simone," he said. I stopped. "I didn't know," he said. "You have to believe me." I knew she was controlling, but I didn't know she would do that. I didn't know she poisoned you. I looked at him. I believed him. Dante was weak. He was a coward. But he wasn't a monster. He was just the product of one. "I believe you, Dante," I said. He looked relieved. A small flicker of hope lit up his eyes. Does that mean we can talk?" he asked. "Can I see the baby when he is born?" "I have nothing left, Simone. Kiana is in jail. Mom is going to prison. You are all I have." I looked at him with pity. "You do not have me, Dante," I said. "You lost me the day you let your mother talk you into that divorce. You lost me the day you let another woman drive my car and sleep in my bed." "But I am his father," Dante whispered. I took a card out of my purse. It was a business card for a law firm. "But not Jameson Ford's firm." "This is a family law attorney," I said, handing it to him. "He specializes in visitation rights for non-custodial parents." "Visitation?" Dante asked, his voice trembling. "If you want to see your son, you will do it by the book," I said. "Supervised visits. Once a month, pending a psychological evaluation. And you will pay child support." "I do not have any money," Dante said. "You have all the money." "Then you better get a job," I said. I walked past him toward the elevator. "Simone," he called out. "What kind of job can I get? I have never worked a real day in my life." I pressed the button for the lobby. The doors opened. I turned back to look at him. "I hear Amazon is hiring," I said. The doors closed, shutting out his stunned face. I rode the elevator down to the lobby. The legal battle was over. Genevieve was finished. Dante was broken. But the cleanup wasn't done yet. I had a company to run. I had a nursery to finish. And I had one final loose end to tie up. Kiana. She was sitting in a cell at the county jail awaiting trial for fraud and conspiracy. But she still had something of mine, or rather something she had bought with my company's money. I walked out of the courthouse. My driver opened the door. "Where to, madame?" "The impound lot," I said. "I have a gold G-Wagon to repossess. And I think it will look perfect repainted black." As the car pulled away, I felt a strong kick from the baby. "It is okay, little one," I whispered. "The bad people are gone. It is just us now. And we have a lot of work to do. The empire was mine. But heavy is the head that wears the crown, especially when that crown was forged in the fire of betrayal. I was ready for the weight. I had carried the burden of their secrets for too long. Carrying the power would be easy in comparison. The fall of Rome took centuries, but the fall of Kiana Jackson took exactly 48 hours. It was a masterclass in forensic accounting and legal brutality. Jameson Ford did not just sue her, he dissected her. I sat in my office in the penthouse of the Sterling Tower, watching the proceedings on a secure feed. I did not need to be there in person. My presence was felt in every subpoena and every court order. Kiana was standing in the middle of her luxury apartment, the one Dante had leased for her using company funds. She was not wearing couture today. She was wearing sweatpants. Around her, a team of court-appointed asset recovery specialists were moving like locusts. They took the handbags first. The limited edition Birkins and the vintage Chanels were cataloged, boxed, and removed. Then they moved to the closet, the furs, the silk dresses, the shoes that cost more than a Honda Civic. All of it was seized. Kiana stood by the window, screaming into her phone. "You cannot do this," she shrieked. "These were gifts. They are my property." I watched as the lead officer handed her a document. It was the judgment from the civil suit for marriage fraud and conversion of corporate assets. Technically, Ms. Jackson, the officer said, his voice bored, these were purchased with stolen funds. They are evidence, and now they are the property of the Sterling Family Trust. He pointed to her wrist. The bracelets too, he said, and the ring. Kiana looked down at her wrist. She was wearing 3 Cartier love bracelets, the ones that are screwed on with a special screwdriver, the ones that symbolize eternal love, or in her case, eternal greed. I do not have the screwdriver, she lied, clutching her wrist. The officer pulled a small tool from his pocket. We came prepared, he said. I watched as she was forced to extend her arm. I watched as he unscrewed the gold bands one by one. I watched the symbol of her status drop into a plastic evidence bag with a dull clatter. It was humiliating. It was thorough. And it was exactly what she deserved. By the end of the day, she was left with a suitcase of old clothes and a bus ticket. She was evicted from the apartment. Her bank accounts were drained to pay legal fees. She was back where she started, but with one major difference. Now the world knew exactly who she was. But Kiana was a survivor. Or at least she thought she was. She thought she could pivot. She thought she could go back to the only thing she knew how to do: selling lies on the internet. 2 weeks later, I got a notification from one of the bots I had monitoring social media. Kiana was live. I clicked the link. The video quality was grainy. She was broadcasting from what looked like a Motel 6. The lighting was harsh fluorescent yellow. She looked tired. The expertly applied makeup was gone, replaced by a heavy layer of foundation that didn't quite match her skin tone. Hey guys, she said, forcing a bright smile that looked like a rictus of pain. Long time no see. I know there have been some crazy rumors lately, but I am here to tell you the truth. The haters are just jealous of my glow. She held up a small plastic jar with a peeling label. Speaking of glow, I am so excited to launch my new skincare line, she chirped. This is Miracle Gold. It is an ancient recipe I found. It clears up everything. Acne, wrinkles, bad vibes. I am selling it for just $49.99. Link in bio. I looked at the comments section. It was scrolling so fast it was a blur. But it wasn't orders. It was an execution. Where are the twins? Kiana, one user wrote. Did you use the Miracle Gold to fake the DNA test? Another asked. Imagine trying to sell lotion after getting caught faking a pregnancy with a personal trainer. You owe me a refund for the last scam. Kiana tried to ignore them. She kept talking faster and faster, her voice rising in pitch. It really works, guys, she said, unscrewing the lid. Look at the texture. She dipped her finger into the jar. It looked like yellow sludge. Fake, just like your life, a user named Truthseeker commented. Kiana saw it. Her smile cracked. You do not know me, she snapped at the camera. You do not know my struggle. I was a victim too. Victim of your own greed, someone replied. Go find Tyrell. Maybe he has $10 for you. Kiana threw the jar at the wall. It shattered. I hate you, she screamed at the phone. I hate all of you. You are all broke losers. I was almost a billionaire. I was this close. The stream cut off. I closed the laptop. She was done. The internet never forgets and the internet never forgives. She would spend the rest of her life trying to outrun her own name. She was not in prison, but she was in a cage of her own making. A cage built of digital shame and poverty. I took a sip of my tea. Kiana was handled. Now it was time for Dante. The elevator doors to the executive suite opened with a soft chime. Dante stepped out. He looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a nervous twitch in his left eye. He was wearing a suit, but it was an old one. One from before the marriage. It was slightly too big for him now that he had lost 20 pounds from stress. He walked toward the reception desk. The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, looked up. She did not smile. I am here to see the CEO, Dante said, adjusting his tie. I have an appointment. Sarah checked her screen. Mr. Sterling, she said coolly. The CEO is expecting you. You can go in. Dante took a deep breath. He smoothed his hair. I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking that I would be in there. He was thinking that he could charm me. He was thinking that he could appeal to my maternal instincts. He thought he was walking into a reunion. He opened the double oak doors to the corner office. The office was exactly as he remembered it. The panoramic view of Atlanta, the mahogany desk, the leather chairs. But the person sitting in the CEO chair was not me. It was Claire, my sister-in-law, the white sheep of the family, the woman Genevieve had ignored for a decade, the woman Dante had treated like a ghost. Claire was wearing a sharp charcoal blazer. Her hair was cut in a sleek bob. She looked powerful. She looked competent. She looked like the boss. Dante stopped in the doorway. He blinked confused. "Claire," he said, "what are you doing here? Where is Simone?" Claire did not stand up. She swiveled slowly in the chair, her fingers steeped together. "Simone is on maternity leave." "Dante," she said, her voice crisp and authoritative. "She is preparing for the arrival of the heir. In her absence, she has appointed an interim chief executive officer." Dante looked around the room. "Who?" he asked. "Me," Claire said simply. Dante laughed. It was a reflex, a holdover from the days when he thought Claire was nothing. "You," he scoffed. "You are a housewife, Claire. You do not know how to run a company." Claire picked up a file from her desk. She opened it. "I have an MBA from Wharton." "Dante," she said, reading from the file. "I graduated top of my class. I worked in mergers and acquisitions for 5 years before I married your brother. You just never bothered to ask me about my resume because you were too busy listening to your mother complain about my background." Dante fell silent. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Simone knows my value," Claire continued, closing the file. "She knows that I was the one who found the discrepancies in the audit. She knows I was the one who helped expose the fraud. She trusts me. And since she owns 51% of this company, my opinion is the only one that matters." Dante swallowed hard. "Okay," he said, humbled. "Okay, so you are the CEO. Why am I here, Claire?" Simone said, "She said I could have a job. She said I could work my way back." Claire nodded. She pulled a standard employment contract from her drawer. She slid it across the desk. "We have a position open," she said. "It is entry-level, but it has potential for growth." Dante reached for the contract. His hands were shaking. "Vice President?" he asked hopefully. "Director of Strategy." Claire smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Junior Compliance Analyst," she said. Dante dropped the paper. "Junior Analyst," he repeated. That is a desk job. That is for college graduates. I was the CEO, Claire. I ran this place." "You ran this place into the ground," Dante. Claire corrected him sharply. "You missed 3 regulatory filings. You commingled funds. You authorized fraudulent expenses. You are a compliance nightmare." She leaned forward. "This is the offer, Dante. You will work in the records department in the basement. You will audit every single expense report from the last 5 years. You will organize the digital archives. You will report to the senior compliance officer, who reports to the VP of finance, who reports to me." Dante stared at her. The basement. The archives. It was a demotion so severe it was a sentence. "I cannot do that," he whispered. "People will see me. The staff. They used to work for me. It is humiliating." "Hunger is humiliating too," Dante. Claire said. "And according to my files, your personal accounts are overdrawn. The bank took the house. You are currently staying at a motel. You need health insurance. You need a paycheck." She tapped the contract. "The salary is $45,000 a year. Plus benefits. Take it or leave it." Dante looked at the contract. He looked at the view of the city he used to own. He looked at Claire, the woman he had underestimated. He realized he had no choice. He was trapped by his own incompetence. He picked up the pen. Can I at least see Simone?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Can I see the baby when he comes?" Claire took the signed contract back. She checked the signature. Simone is busy, Dante. She is building a future. If you do your job well, if you show up on time, if you prove that you can be responsible, maybe in 6 months we will discuss supervised visitation. She pressed the intercom button. Security, she said. 2 guards walked in. They were new hires. They did not know Dante as the boss. They only knew him as the new guy. Please escort Mr. Sterling to his desk in the basement, Claire ordered. And get him a badge. Visitor access only. Dante stood up. He looked small. He looked defeated. Thank you, Claire, he whispered. Mr. Sterling. Claire corrected him without looking up. It is Ms. Sterling to you. We are professional here. Dante turned and walked out, flanked by security. I watched it all from the camera hidden in the bookshelf. I sat in my nursery, the room painted a soft sage green. I stroked the kicking foot of my son. Dante was in the basement where he belonged, digging through the past he had tried to bury. Kiana was in the digital gutter where she belonged, trying to sell lies to a world that finally knew the truth. Genevieve was in a holding cell where she belonged, waiting for a judge to tell her that her bloodline could not save her from the law. And Claire. Claire was in the corner office where she belonged, finally allowed to shine. I took a deep breath. The war was over. The pieces were all in their right places. I looked at the ultrasound photo on my nightstand. You are going to have a strange family, little one, I whispered. A father in the mailroom, a grandmother in prison, and an aunt running the empire. But you have a mother who would burn the world down to keep you warm. And that is all you will ever need. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in a year I didn't plot. I didn't scheme. I just slept. The revenge wasn't sweet. It was solid. It was the foundation of a house that no wolf could ever blow down again. The sun over Atlanta felt different now. It didn't feel oppressive or heavy like it used to when I lived in the shadow of Genevieve Sterling. Today the sun felt like a spotlight illuminating the life I had built from the ashes of their rejection. It was a perfect Saturday afternoon in late October. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the expensive vanilla cake that was currently being sliced in the garden. 1 year. It had been exactly 1 year since the wedding that wasn't. 1 year since the Sterling dynasty crumbled, and I picked up the pieces. I stood on the terrace of the Buckhead estate, my estate. The deed was framed in my office, but the real ownership was written in the laughter echoing from the lawn. Gone were Genevieve's stiff rose bushes and the statues that looked like they were judging you. I had torn them all out. In their place, I had planted wildflowers and installed a playground. The grass was littered with toys, a colorful chaos that would have given my former mother-in-law a stroke. In the center of the garden, surrounded by balloons and friends, sat the guest of honor. Julian, my son, the heir. He was 1 year old today. He was sitting in a high chair that looked like a throne, smearing blue icing all over his face. He had Dante's dark eyes and his grandfather's strong chin, but his smile was all mine. It was a smile that knew nothing of burden, nothing of legacy, and nothing of conditions. He was just a happy baby, loved for who he was, not for what he represented. Claire stood next to him, holding a napkin, laughing as she tried to wipe his face. Look at him, Claire called up to me, shielding her eyes from the sun. He is a monster, Simone. He has destroyed the cake. The board of directors is going to be very upset about this lack of decorum. I laughed, walking down the stone steps. The board answers to me, Claire, I said. And if the chairman wants to wear his cake, he wears his cake. Claire beamed. She looked radiant. The past year had transformed her, too. The shy, beaten-down woman who used to hide in the shadows was gone. In her place was the CEO of Sterling Industries. Under her leadership, the stock price had doubled. She ruled with empathy, not fear, and the company was thriving. I walked over and kissed Julian on his sticky forehead. He giggled and reached for my hair with icing-covered fingers. Happy birthday, my love, I whispered. It was a small party. Just close friends, my legal team, and the people who had stood by me. Jameson Ford was there drinking champagne and looking very pleased with himself. Marcus, my head of security, was by the perimeter grill eating a burger, but his eyes never stopped scanning. It was peaceful. It was safe. It was home. But the past has a way of knocking on the door, even when you have changed the locks. Marcus touched his earpiece. His expression shifted from relaxed to alert. He set down his plate and walked over to me. "Ms. Sterling," he said quietly, leaning in so the guests wouldn't hear. "We have a situation at the main gate." "Is it the press?" I asked. "No, ma'am," Marcus said. "It is your ex-husband." I felt a small cold knot tighten in my stomach. Not fear, just a memory of pain. "Dante," I said. "He says he has a gift," Marcus said. "For the boy. He is asking for 5 minutes. He says he used his lunch break to come here." I looked at Julian, who was now trying to feed cake to the family dog. He was so innocent. He didn't know that his father was standing outside a gate he used to own, asking for permission to enter a home he used to rule. I looked at Claire. She had heard. She stopped laughing. She looked at me, waiting for my cue. I walked back up the stairs to the terrace. I went into the library. On the wall was a large monitor connected to the security cameras. I tapped the screen, bringing up the feed from the front gate. There he was, Dante Sterling. He was wearing a simple button-down shirt and slacks. He looked older. There was gray in his hair now. He wasn't wearing a Rolex. He was holding a small wrapped box in his hands. He was shifting his weight from foot to foot, looking through the iron bars of the gate. He looked at the house. He looked at the garden where he had grown up. He must have been able to hear the music and the laughter. He was on the outside looking in at the paradise he had forfeited. I zoomed in on his face. There was no anger there, no entitlement, just a profound sadness. He looked like a man who had finally woken up from a long dream, only to find that he had slept through the best parts of his life. I pressed the intercom button. "Dante." He jumped. He looked up at the camera. He couldn't see me, but he knew I was watching. "Simone," he said. His voice was tinny through the speaker. "Happy birthday to him. I brought something. It is just a toy. A wooden horse. I made it myself. In the shop." I looked at the box. He had made it. The old Dante would have sent an assistant to buy the most expensive toy in the store. This Dante had spent hours carving wood. "That is kind of you, Dante," I said. Can I come in?" Dante asked. "Just for a minute. I just want to see him. I won't cause a scene." "Please, Simone. It has been a year." I hesitated. Part of me, the part that once loved him, wanted to say yes, wanted to let him have this moment. But then I looked back at the garden. I saw Claire. I saw Julian. I saw the peace we had built. Dante was working hard. Claire told me he was the first one in the office and the last one to leave. He was humble. He was trying. But redemption is not a sprint. It is a marathon. And he had only just started running. "Not today, Dante," I said softly. Dante's shoulders slumped. He looked down at the box in his hands. "Please," he whispered, "just for a second." "We have an agreement, Dante," I said. "Supervised visits start next month, pending the review. You know the rules." "I know," he said, his voice cracking. I missed so much." "You chose to miss it," I said. "You chose Kiana. You chose the lie." "Consequences last longer than apologies, Dante." He nodded slowly. He knew I was right. He placed the box on the ground next to the gate. "Will you give it to him?" he asked. Tell him his dad made it." I looked at the small box. "I will give it to him," I said. "Thank you, Simone," he said. "And you did a good job. With the house, with the company, with him. You were always the best of us." He looked at the camera one last time. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him walk down the long driveway toward the bus stop. He walked with a heavy step, carrying the weight of his mistakes. He didn't look back. I turned off the monitor. I stood there for a moment in the silence of the library. Genevieve was in a cell, Kiana was in obscurity, Dante was in the basement, and I was here. I walked back out to the terrace. The party was still in full swing. Claire was opening gifts. Julian was clapping his hands, delighted by the sound of tearing paper. I walked down the stairs. I picked up my son. He smelled of sugar and grass. He rested his head on my shoulder, his heavy eyelids drooping. He was tired. It had been a big day. I looked out at the guests. I looked at the home I had reclaimed. They had tried to erase me. They had tried to buy me off. They thought that writing a check for $6 million would solve their problem. They didn't understand that they weren't paying me to leave. They were funding my war chest. I held Julian tighter. They thought money could buy my silence. They thought power could buy my submission. But in the end, my silence bought their empire, and my resilience bought my freedom. I looked at the gate one last time. Keep walking, Dante, I thought. Keep working. Maybe one day you will earn your way back into this world. But until then, this kingdom belongs to the queen and her prince. I turned my back on the gate. I walked back into the warmth of the celebration. Let them eat cake, I whispered to my son. And we did. The most powerful lesson I learned is that your worth is never determined by those who cannot afford to keep you. The Sterlings thought they could buy my silence with $6 million, but they only financed their own destruction. True power isn't about inheritance or bloodlines. It is about the resilience to walk away when you are undervalued and the intelligence to build your own empire. When life hands you betrayal, don't just even get successful. The best revenge is not burning their house down, but building a bigger one and closing the gate. If you believe that success is the ultimate revenge, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice served cold.